4:30. It is 4:35. We're calling the meeting to order. Can you call roll call?
Yes, sir, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Tim Carter,
Here.
Commissioner Goldstein,
Present.
and I will note that Chairman Roeder will not be in attendance tonight.
Thank you for that. All right, quorum has been established. Do we have any public comment? Are we online?
We are.
Do we have any online? Have any online comments? Or do I? Okay. All right, hearing no public comment, let's move on to approval and adoption of the agenda. Do we have any recommended changes to the agenda? Okay. Okay, we do have a public comment. Speaker, go ahead. I don't know right on here, so I don't.
Our superintendent.
Ah.
Okay.
Well, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our commissioners. Good afternoon to you, Charlie, and good afternoon to the public who is both present and online. I'm Unikia Ford Marthel, the proud superintendent of Berkeley Unified School District, and I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to come here and to first thank you all for the thoughtful engagement and development of the class and comp study. I know that is an agenda item today, so I look forward to hearing the commissioner's recommendation, but also want to take this opportunity to really thank you all for hiring Charlie, and Charlie for the amazing work that you have done for and with Berkeley Unified School District. You have been a really thoughtful colleague. You've been on our extended cabinet and you have really integrated yourself into our system, making it really clear what your role is, but really more importantly, helping us to make sure that we have the best folks in our classified positions to serve our students and families. So I wanted to come on behalf of myself, our board, and the many folks here in BUSD, classified and otherwise, to personally say thank you for your years of service to BUSD and to wish you the best in your next journey. I also just wanted to say again, because Charlie has been such an amazing example of partnership, I do look forward to working with our commissioners and whoever the new Charlie is, in the hopes that we will continue to have a strong partnership, and really want to advocate for BUSD to somehow be a part of the conversation as you select the new Charlie. It's hard to find another Charlie, but I look forward to working closely with you all to find the best fit and the right match. I wish you all a wonderful meeting. I won't be able to stay for its entirety, but I'm glad to be here for the time that I am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you very, very much. I'm humbled by your words, and again, it's bittersweet. It has been great working with Anikia and her staff, and you know, I'd be remiss to say that they're just a great group of people, and whoever does take over for me is going to be really lucky to work with them. So thank you. It's been my honor, and I really appreciate your kind words, Anikia, very much. Thank you.
And for some background, for those who are online and aren't aware, this happens to be Charlie's last meeting. He will be leaving us. Unfortunately, it is going to be a loss for definitely the PC and for the district as well. So we do appreciate you, Charlie. Okay. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none. See. Oh, yep, we have one in person.
Yes, I know that you probably passed the agenda. I don't know if it's okay at this time. I just want to ask that if it's possible that we can move, just because I didn't know that I was going to be on night duty tonight, if we can move discussion item number B to the next meeting, just because I'll be on night duty and I won't be able to address what I need to address today.
Just for clarification.
It's 9B.
9B.
Yes, if we could move it to the next meeting if possible.
So you want us to ask for a motion? So there's a motion. The proposal is to have a motion to move 9B as a discussion item to our next meeting in September.
I appreciate it if we can. Yes. Thank you.
I'll take that under approval and adoption of the agenda. So,
Thank you.
yep, you're welcome. All right, hearing no more public comment, I think we have a request for an adjustment to the agenda before it's adopted.
Right, and if I could ask also that we just pull 7J for conversation before we vote on that one.
7J. Okay, so recommendations so far are to pull 7J from the consent items and to move discussion item 9B to the next meeting.
I'm fine.
All right,
I vote aye.
I take that as a
Second,
motion.
whatever, yeah,
I second that,
Okay.
I second that motion. All right.
okay.
All right, so since we are not moving consent item 7J, we're just discussing it. Should we do that now before we approve the rest of the agenda?
I think we, just when we get to
The consent
7,
items?
yeah,
consent items,
you know,
okay.
we just might as well go through, I think,
Okay,
the other items.
okay,
What
sounds
we
good.
usually do, Vice Chair, is that when we get to that, we usually go through all the other items without J and then discuss J before we approve it. But sometimes we approve everything else so we can allow us to discuss J separately.
Got it. All right. So moving on to approval of the minutes. We have the meeting minutes from June 26th, July 29th, and August 1st. Are there any changes or recommendations?
I don't have any changes to any of these, so I'm prepared to approve them all.
I have no changes to them.
Okay, then I move
All right,
that
I
we
second.
approve June 26th, July 29th, and August 1 minutes as they are.
All right, I second. All right, moving on to the reports. Do we have reports from the union?
Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone had a great summer. And I hope you have a wonderful year. First, of course, we want to thank Charlie for his service, and it's bittersweet, you know, that's my friend who am I gonna argue with now? You know, so I'm sad. I'm sad, but we are gonna miss you. We do thank you, you know, for the service and the time that you know, you're here, that you were here with us. So, it's your last meeting and we're gonna miss you. So thank you. We want to make sure that we acknowledge, you know, the time that you were here with us. For tonight's union report, there has been a lot going on, as you know, the moving of the school sites. So it has been, we kind of deterred from a lot of things that the union has been working on, especially with dealing with the class and comp. And that's what I'm gonna kind of like just pretty much focus on right now. I'm not gonna go into a deep discussion about it. It was interesting, and I'm just gonna, you know, one thing you guys can always get from me is just how I feel in this honesty, because it's interesting that the superintendent would, you know, said what she said. And I've never heard her say too much about the class and comp because she wasn't at any of our meetings or any committee meetings or anything, or asked how the union felt with the class and comp or our feedback about the class and comp. So I'm hoping, and what we're asking today is for no recommendations to be made at this time. The reason we're asking for you to hold off on making any recommendation at this time is because there are many concerns with the class and comp that I have brought forth throughout the process. We as a executive committee for BCCE divided up the classification and went through the compensation piece that we received late in May. The last meeting that we had with the ENH was in January 9th, and then we hadn't heard from them for a long time. There was nothing. It was just crickets. And then all of a sudden, they appear before us in May with a compensation piece that we as a committee didn't even get a chance to meet with them about. So it was just us receiving this information from them, and then it was just, here it is. So we have to do our due diligence to do our investigation and say, okay, what is this? What is it that you're giving to us that we're supposed to just say, what is this? What does this mean? And going back through the notes that we have taken from the very beginning, we stated, this is not how we wanted the class and comp to be. We didn't want to repeat the same behavior of the last compensation studies that made our members not want to participate in the compensation. We didn't want them to feel that their voices weren't going to be heard. We didn't want them to feel that it was going to be all about management. We didn't want them to feel nothing that has happened. So we have taken some time that we have, again, like I said, there has been things that has been going on with our schedules, the moves. So we had to have, we had to stop our investigation that we started. And what we did was we started going through the compensation of what we received from ENH. And I'm just going to give you just a little bit because I want you just to kind of understand why we're asking for you not to make any recommendation at this time. There are a lot of concerns that we have with what we received from them. There are concerns that still have not been addressed from our members. With the compensation piece and looking at the numbers that was given to us, the numbers that we received from them this last time, again, the last time we heard from them was when they showed up here in May. The numbers aren't adding up. So they gave us, just like, for example, I'm just gonna say, delivery driver, I'm just using this one as an example. They gave us delivery driver and it just says, step one, mid-range, and then there's the max. And they gave us the numbers 35, 25, 3707, 38, 88. And then it has the columns, and then it'll have the median, the average, the median, and so forth. And they give us the numbers. Their numbers aren't matching up with the numbers that our investigation gave. And this is just one of many. And we're going through them, just trying to see why their numbers are different from our numbers. And I remember in our last meeting that we had prior, when we had our last committee meeting before Ewan showed up here at the Personnel Commission. And, I said at that meeting, well, wait a minute, their numbers is different from the numbers that we have. Where are they getting these numbers from? But we never met with Ewan. We never had an opportunity. I'm sorry, I keep saying Ewan, ENH. Oh my God, ENH. We never met with ENH. So ENH never met with the committee to go over their report prior to them bringing the report to the commission. So it was just nothing. So it was that, and it's a lot of other concerns. I don't know what the rush is. I don't know what recommendation would be made at this time. I don't think that the whole purpose of this class and comp was for ENH to come and just do grammar checks and punctuation through the job descriptions because we're a school district. We have teachers. We have many people that can do grammar checks and punctuation. So we didn't need to pay 200,000 for them to come and do that. And honestly, we still need to put in a information request to find out what did we pay them because they were gone for months. They didn't do their job. There's a lot of things that we still need to investigate. So we're just asking the commission at this time to allow us to finish our investigation, to come back to you guys with more information, and to give the union an opportunity to meet with the Personnel Commission and have more of a discussion about concerns that we have with the class and comp. To give a recommendation at this time, I feel that you will be giving a recommendation on erroneous information that you have received. So that's what I have so far with the class and comp. Is there anything I'm missing? No, that's it. All right. Well, thank you for the time. And again, Charlie, stay in touch. And we do appreciate you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Okay, next up, district report. Do we have anyone here from the district online who may want to give a report? Okay. All right, hearing none, moving on to commissioners. Commissioners, do we have any reports? All right, go ahead.
I can give a report. First, I'd just like to welcome our summer hires. We didn't have a lot, but I'm glad we had some. We had Aaron Saychow, forgive bad pronunciation, come on as a custodian 1, and Brian Van Note come on as a communications specialist, and we always need communications people. So both are important jobs. I also wanted to congratulate John Calise on being appointed an assistant superintendent. He has a lot of work to do. We have 2 schools that are somewhere else now due to concerns with buildings. I think he's probably a pretty busy guy, and glad to have someone with his depth and expertise focusing on this. The class and comp, it's an agenda item, so I look forward to talking about it more. A little later in this meeting. I think what's important to remember about the class and comp is it comes as a chunk of information right on time, along with union negotiations for their CBA, which I think will be helpful, but maybe we'll get a chance to discuss further on this. I've done a pretty fine review of the EHA report as well, have some thoughts. And then last but not least, we got a bunch of changes here at the PC. So Charlie is smiling. Probably, there was no way we can adequately. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
But we can recount some of your accomplishments in your brief 3 years. I wish it was more. You have gone over our rules with Chairperson Roeder largely, with a fine tooth comb, and we have a good set of recommendations from that. And it's only been, I don't know, what's 1972 to now, a few decades since we were able to do that and then, continue that process. You put forward a class and comp study. It's been a decade and it's never perfect. It's never easy. You came in the middle of COVID and had to manage recruitments and testing. And through that, you actually brought a bunch of recruiting innovations. So I could go on, but to me, these are important things, and it's why we're sad. One of the reasons we're sad that you're leaving. So with that, however, I feel really good that Aaron is our interim at the helm. Aaron, no pressure. And that we have a strong team, that we have Sarah, that we have Brian, that we have Olga. And this group, I think, is just gonna tear it up while we are looking. And always available to you, Aaron, especially if you need perspective. So that's my report.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I have a short report. I think is now is a more appropriate time than any. I do want to thank Charlie for his service. He's made my transition back to the commission very smooth, very easy, and in comparison to where it was when I left a few years ago and to where it is now, I can definitely see the improvement in the processes and the continuity in the office. So you will be missed, Charlie. Officially, you will be missed, as you can tell. But we do wish you well moving forward. All right. Personnel Director, do you have reports?
Great, thank you. You know, I'm humbled by all of the really kind words, and when I say that it's bittersweet, it is because I've forged good relationships here. I was given a wonderful opportunity. I was given a lot of support and a lot of leeway. Again, going back to partnerships, I look to Mildred, to Frank, to Jocelyn. Wonderful partnership with Samantha and her team. Great partnership with Anikia and Brent before Anikia. And, you know, just people that genuinely care and advocate. And that is exciting to be around. I myself, feel like I'm better now leaving than when I got here. I can proudly say that it is better now than when I got here. We have a better PC team, but I am not going to take the sole credit. That would not be accurate. That is due to the fact that I had a very supportive commission. Both Tims, the other Tim's not here, but both Tims and the current commission. I have always had a very good relationship with the superintendent's office, which has helped facilitate solutions. The senior leadership team of the superintendent's team, everyone from John Calise to Max to Pauline too, has end result being good things and positive things in the way of policy and rules and other great things for both the PC and the district. I will miss my relationship with Mildred and Frank, even though she may not believe it. And that is because when I say that that the PC is better now 3 years ago than it was better now than it was 3 years ago when I got here, that is because, again, it's not just my team, it's the relationships I've forged so this is definitely a moment in time that can be celebrated for everyone. And then going to the team, you do have a great team. Everyone on the team is really good at what they do. I'm actually really happy, commissioners, that Aaron will be the interim. I think in Aaron, you can't find a better problem solver, a person with patience, a person with grace. She treats everyone with respect. She does not get angry and yell and do, things. She really just has a stoicism that is necessary for the role. I think with your support, hopefully she applies for it. I think it's her job to lose, frankly. I think that she would be a great person to fall in and follow in behind me. I think that she would do the job in differently, but effectively. She has a different style, obviously, but you'd be very well served. I think Aaron is a fantastic person to take over. That said, I see the superintendent is still here. Sarah, can you schedule a meeting with Jessica so that Aaron can meet with Anikia? Okay, so we'll make that start to happen. And then we need to get Aaron on the exec team. But again, great leaders have said this. Anikia says this a lot. It is the partnerships. I could have gotten here and had all these ideas and not had a great team and not had supportive commissioners and not had a union that would push back and not had an HR group that would have worked with me. All of those things factor to where we are now, and I am proud of how I'm leaving the department. But again, it wasn't me waving a magic wand. It was collaboration, patience, support that made that happen. So thank you all for the kind words. And again, I want to say again what I've said to others. I'm not leaving because of Berkeley. I'm leaving because I have a good opportunity, and there's a difference. I think Berkeley is a great school district. It's only going to get better. You have a great superintendent and a great advocacy with the unions, and really great people in administration. So I look forward to seeing where Berkeley goes from here. That said, I will read my last and final exam report. So we had, for the month of June, 117 exams. There were 44 for training and experience, 63 for the written, and 10 for the oral exams. In June, we hired a custodian 1. And then for July, we had 184 exams, 106 were training and experience, 71 were written, and 7 were oral. Do those numbers check out? You always check. Okay, good. Heidi, every now and then. I know. Yeah, I mean, Heidi will correct me every now and then, and that's what she's good at. And then for the new hires for July, we had John Calise, who's not a new hire, but he, as noted before by Commissioner Goldstein, is now an assistant superintendent of facilities and maintenance. And that's not only, in my opinion, well-deserved. John's a great person in that role, and he's very committed to the district. So I think that's fantastic. And we hired a communication specialist as well. So those were the hires for July. And then I believe I have if it's okay, Vice Chair, can I go to 6E, which is my last final report on classification and compensation?
I think it's a perfect segue.
Thank you. You know, I can really like and respect somebody and disagree with them a little bit. And I'm looking at Mildred because I've said 100 times, I never question Mildred's advocacy and where her heart is. And I don't necessarily disagree with everything she said, but I'm only going to highlight where Mildred and I may disagree, just for the purposes of the classification and compensation part. And because this is my last meeting, so I won't have the opportunity to have further discussions. Although the report itself may not have been perfect, and there were certainly some issues that I won't get into, we are where we are right now. And when I look at the report, I think about the reclasses that are in the report. And I think of all of the folks that were 10% or below. Now, that said, I believe the PC can make these recommendations to the board in the form of possibly resolutions. For instance, a resolution that no one in the district is paid more than 10% below market. You know, that, again, that's an example. And certainly, I think that all of the employees who've been waiting for their reclass to be approved, those would basically be done by this office anyway. So I think that in terms of, and again, I'm trying to capture this more in the spirit of retention and appreciation and trying to do right by the current classified employee staff. My recommendation to the commissioners as a recommendation would be those two, which is making sure that our employees are not paid, continue to be paid more than 10% below market, and that the current reclasses in the EHA report move forward. Those would be the recommendations I would move forward to the two of you for your consideration. In regards to the other matters that Mildred mentioned, I do agree with some of the things Mildred said, but there is bargaining. And I think that the PC can facilitate and assist and help in that process, however the district would want them to help. But I do think that there is a component of this in terms of the classification and compensation piece, in which if we go to the beginning of this agreement, the district paid for the classification and compensation study, but the PC team made a commitment to see it to this point. And I think what the district is expecting is that the PC now say, okay, we've received the report. These are our thoughts. So that the district can now act on some of it, maybe the two things I mentioned, maybe other things. But there are things in the report that can be acted on right away. And I believe they should, just for the purposes of appreciation of the employees and definitely for the purposes of retention. And I think the other matters can be dealt with as you go. But at least those two items, if not more, can be recommended now. All of that said, again, I'm very appreciative for my time here. I will definitely take a lot of what I've learned here with me, and I won't be too far. And I hope that I can stop by and have lunch with some folks. But again, thank you all very much.
Thank you for that. All right, moving on to, wait, is there anything, do you have any questions for our director on the? Something? Okay, all right, I have no questions either. All right, moving on to the consent items. Shall we discuss? Are there any other items here that need to be pulled other than J?
Mm-mm.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the A through I and K?
Sure. So I'll motion that we approve 7A through I and 7K now.
Okay, I second that.
Okay.
That leaves 7J. All right, so we discuss 7J, yeah.
Sure. So the reason I wanted to pull 7J is interestingly, this is, and I'm looking for the list now, for the school campus aide position. This is probably one of our most entry level positions. And in the past, it's been one we've had trouble recruiting for. And this list is just huge. So I'm interested to know what happened, that made this list so sizable. I'm glad to see it, but it's just notable to me. And I also want a little perspective on this position only because we have an item later in our meeting. Which item? Paradise Roberts item, a discussion item. And now I don't see where it is. 8D, okay, 8D. Where someone in this role was doing the work of a school safety officer, which blew my mind. So I am interested in both those questions.
So, Commissioner, if I may, I would like to defer the first question to our interim executive director, because she has the answer on that. And the second question, if Assistant Superintendent Tobias Espinosa, she may be able to speak to the specifics of the Paradise Roberts case.
Hi. So yes, you're right. This is a really large list. We're very grateful. We had held off on recruiting for about a month and a half this summer because we were still dealing with some layoff issues. There were some school campus aid positions that were being laid off and then assignments were changing. So when we were able to recruit before school started, we realized there was a large pool. And we usually don't have such a large pool, but we did. So I mean, a lot of people are looking for work during the summer. And so we were able to generate this list. We do have about 11 vacancies. So the list is appropriate for that amount of vacancies. And they've been sent off a little over a week ago to the principals with the vacancies, and they've already started to submit paperwork to hire these employees.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good news. I'm glad to hear it. And, you know, we take a nice confluence of events when we can get it, right?
Sam,
Um,
unmuted. There we go.
Thank you. I again want to echo the comments about Charlie. He will be missed. I have greatly enjoyed working with Charlie, and the rest of his team, and I'm looking forward to continuing that work. In our work that we've done over the past year, and part of the side effect of looking at the seniority chart and everything having to do with school campus aides, it came to our attention that there was a position at one of our middle schools, Longfellow, where a school campus aide had been hired for a 0.8 FTE. And I would remind everybody that the school campus aides were created originally to be like noon supervisors. They were very often only there for the lunchtime or for recess supervision. They are designed in our district to be only at the elementary school sites. And so there were two concerns, one being that this position was at a middle school, and two being that it was a 0.8 FTE. And so after doing some research and talking to multiple people, including the administrators who have supervised this position, it was determined that this position had been inappropriately classified as a school campus aide, and that this person had been serving as a school safety officer in that capacity. And so that is why this item has come to the commission.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am just wondering, did this person test for school campus aide? I mean, I'm just wondering how they got hired. And then what happened?
Yes, it was unusual, but I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there's a state law that passed that all noon supervisors would become part of the classified service.
Right.
So at that point, we grandfathered in all of the noon supervisors. And so they didn't go through the normal process of testing and getting on eligibility lists. They just converted into school campus aides.
You were here for that, I think, right? Do you remember that? I do, because I remember you going to schools to talk to people.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
Yeah.
You know,
I did
noon
some-
supervisors.
I did some
Yeah,
visits.
yeah, okay.
Oh.
So this was a position that was grandfathered in, got it. And was it always at Longfellow?
It was at Longfellow when the position was changed over to the school campus aide from the noon soup.
Right, but the person, when they were, you know, an employee, you know, as a noontime supervisor, they were a noontime supervisor at Longfellow?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We're sort of getting ahead of ourselves, but you know, since you know, Samantha is here, I thought I would just ask. Okay. And for the FTE, when they were grandfathered in, this was their FTE at Longfellow? Okay.
The FTE when they got grandfathered in was, I believe, at 0.67, and then it was increased, I believe, 2 school years later to a 0.8.
So it was originally a 0.67, and gosh, when all this was grandfathered in a long time ago.
January of 2019.
Okay, so all right, so So in 2021 is when it went to a 0.8?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right. I know we'll get to talk about this more, so I'll just leave it alone for now. Thank you, Samantha, for that information. That was really helpful. And I'm ready to vote on J.
All right.
7J.
Can I get a motion to approve 7J?
I motion that we
Aye.
approve 7J.
I second.
Okay.
All right. All right, moving on to our conference items. Let's start with conference item 8A, step advance. Do we have C. Shirley here? On Zoom. Okay, would you like to speak?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes.
Oh, great, wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me to the meeting this evening. And also, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me into the Berkeley Unified School District. It's a great honor to be a part of that system. I've lived in Berkeley for about 15 years now, and and raised 4 kids that have gone through the system, and just want to say thank you so much for that opportunity. Yeah, I came to the board this evening just to speak about the STEP advance.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, under, I guess, the practice of new hires, the entry level, I guess when they brought me on board, the pay was at 23.46 per hour, and I'm asking the board if they would consider the step 5 for consideration.
Okay, we'll appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we discuss?
Well, yes, just that my experience of, like I said, raising 4 kids, 2 on the spectrum to adulthood, and 11 years working at Oak Hill School in Marin, I feel like it's a cumulative 36 years of experience in the field. I feel with the great team that I have at Ruth Actie and just a wonderful population of students that are there, I feel like my worth is really well placed. And even in the short 2 weeks that we've been there since the first day of school, I see a lot of promise already in just the short time that I've been there. We've been able to establish some great, procedures from day one. So I really feel hopeful about that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. All right. Mr. Director, would you like to speak on your recommendation?
Of course, Vice Chair, thank you. Mr. Shirley said it better than I could. And now that we've have a rubric, using the rubric method here, he has over 10 years of relevant experience, and this is definitely a shortage area for us, always. I2 SPED, special ed, no question. It's a recruitment issue, even under the best circumstances. So I would definitely support and recommend a step 5 for Mr. Shirley.
Commissioner Goldstein, do you have any comments?
Sure, I always have comments. That's thank you, Mr. Shirley, for talking to us about your experience, which is great. And special ed, especially at the elementary level, is so important to get right, because if that's where you're going to get them to love school, that's where you're going to get them to do it. I also, in terms of using the class and comp study, am so delighted that now I have a tool that every time we talk about a position, about any aspect of a position, I go back to this lovely little chart, which I'll show, right? Which is from the comp report 4. It slices and dices a whole bunch of ways the 50 benchmark positions that were looked at compared to other peer group institutions in our area to help us understand what our compensation is, just compared to that peer group. I thought the peer group was a pretty good peer group. It is who we compete with. And the IAs are all over the place, but mostly they are below the median. So, this helps me understand a little bit about why we may have a retention problem. And based on that, as well as, this particular employee's experience, I support your recommendation for step 5.
All right, thank you for that. I am appreciative that we have a rubric to use. You guys, if you're unaware, I'm not a fan of placing someone at step 5 only because there's no place left for them to go, and it speaks volume to the people who we already have in that position. I think Mr. Shirley is well qualified and very much deserves it, because this is a very hard to fill position for us at BUSD. And again, since we do have a rubric, and I'm sure our directors lean heavily on that, I will also move to recommend we approve.
All right, so if you move, should I second?
I think you have to.
Oh, all right, I can move.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you have to move, and I
Right,
second.
I move that we approve this item 8A for placement at step 5
All right,
for Christopher Shirley.
I second. All right, Mr. Shirley, thank you very much for your comments. Very much appreciated.
And thank you to the board. Thank you. Really wonderful to hear.
All right, moving on to 8B, step advancement for D Chan. Do we have anyone here to speak?
Mr. Chan is not here. However, nutrition services, with the exception of last year, which Bonnie, who's no longer here, who's also missed very much, she gave us, Vice Chair Carter, a great glowing recommendation, but the challenges still remain in terms of recruitment. Nutrition services, despite our good year last year, still remains, like special ed, a difficult area to fill. Mr. Chan was on another list, and I did move him to this list because he was in a higher list, and the rules allow for us to qualify someone in that same class who's in the higher list to, if they want to, if they're interested, to move down. But I mentioned that because it speaks to the difficulty of trying to get someone with his experience in a role in nutrition services. He does have 5 years of the combined experience, if we're going now to the rubric as well. So I believe, because of the retention issues and the fact that he does have the 5 years combined in a very hard to fill area, I recommend a step 5 for Mr. Chan as well.
Any comments?
I have 2 questions. One is, my memory is that one of the reasons we also have trouble filling nutrition services roles. And this one, according to the Glass and Comp study, is at the median, so we're paying competitively. But the problem is, it is a very fractional FTE. Is this one also a very fractional FTE?
I don't know if this one is. I don't think this one is. But I'm looking at the director sheet.
I don't believe anymore, because nutrition services made the effort to raise the FTEs for all of their positions to come up to almost 1.0.
Right. So what are we at? I mean, it's not a 1.0 though, right? I mean.
In some positions are 1.0 already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do we know if this one is?
I believe so. The nutrition services director is here, but I'm not sure if he wants to comment on that.
Mhm. Okay, I'm glad it's, that the FTE situation is better. It's not material to my decision, but, was just curious. I would also say, looking at, Mr. Chan's resume, the question that popped into my head is, can he drive a bus? I know you switched him on lists, but, yeah, no, we need him both places. And if this is where he wants to be, I think this is a good place for him to be. I think he has the experience, it matches to the rubric, and I'm supportive of the step 5 placement.
Thank you for that. Mr. Director, can you speak to, you asked him to step down from a higher position. Can you speak to that?
No, I hope I didn't misspeak. No, he was already on another list, but he was on the NSO list, which is a higher list than the NSA list. So in other words, because he was already on a list in that series that was higher than this one, it's easy for us to move him into the other one because he already meets all the requirements for the other list. It's not something we do often, but the rules do allow for it, especially in an area of need where we really ask folks, are they interested? And if they say they are, then we go ahead and move them down. But we can only do it when the lists are in that same series. They both are nutrition. One is nutrition services satellite operator, and the other one is nutrition services. So that's why we were able to do it.
And can you speak to the difficulty recruiting for this position? Is that has that gotten better?
Yeah, last year it did get better. It's still challenging, though. I think the reason it got better last year was not just Aaron's team's efforts and us looking at different ways to recruit, but there was a consolidation of the FTEs that Bonnie worked on to combine a lot of these 0.33s and 0.44s. Once the positions became 0.7s, 0.8s, it became easier to recruit for because people don't want to work 2 hours.
Right.
They want to work 6 or something. So it was those efforts that now have made it easier. It's still a challenge, though. Most people don't want to work in food service. Oh,
Yes, and I just wanted to add that, typically most of our nutrition services assistant lists usually only have 3 or 4 ranks, maybe less. And in this case, Charlie was able to certify the service satellite operator list to fill the NSA vacancy because at the time we didn't have a list anymore. And so we received the request from Bonnie, and so we certified the NSSO list to fill the NSA list, which is a lower, it's lower, and it is still it is that and the school campus aide, they're the lowest paid positions in the district.
A question also, which I think is the benefit of combining the fractional FTEs. The threshold for benefits through BUSD is what FTE these days?
0.73. Sorry. 0.73.
Okay. So the other benefit here, and this is a real dynamic, you have no way of knowing people's real circumstances. But, sometimes the benefits are really why someone wants to take the job. It's a job they know, it's a job they're comfortable with. They're not in it for the salary, they're in it for the benefits, and the benefits can be very substantial. This can be, if it's, family medical coverage, $3,000, $3,500 a month worth of benefits. And people, contribute at BUSD. I know it's got a healthy contribution from employees as well, but that's a chunk of change times 12 months.
Okay, do you want to move on?
I will, yes. So I'd like to move that we go ahead and place Drake Chan at level 5 for this position, nutritional services assistant.
I second that, and I would request in the future for our interim, if you can include the rubric for each of the place statements, each of the if we have 5, let's clean them 5 times so we know where they fall and why. So you guys don't have to tell us every time. All right, approved. Thank you.
You're in the best possible position to make the commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, next on the list is Ms. Jones. Step advance request. Do we have a,
Sorry,
Ms. Jones here?
I believe so.
Would you like to speak? Come on up.
Good afternoon or good evening, shall I say? Appreciate being here. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate also working for BUSD. I actually enjoy where I'm working. I figure I'm here to bring quality, just like BUSD has quality. And it's funny, one of my first positions was working with pre-K 2 and 3-year-olds. And here I find my way back to working with children from that range up to elementary. And I also do bring a lot of skills of not just working with the children, working with the skills of, driving the bus, the air brakes. I've driven for more than 11 years doing that, driven trucks, public relations, extensive training, safety, the whole thing. And I think I bring a lot to the table. And I figured if I figured this company's worth it, I figured the company thinks that I'm worth it too, with all my skills and qualifications. And I actually do still enjoy working with the children, which is wonderful. And I enjoy where I'm at. So my goal is to be here and hopefully move up into some other spots, which I've always done in the past. So you want to pat myself on the back, and I just want to be patted on the back too, and appreciate it. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that. And we appreciate you for coming to our district. Yeah, people like you make us better. We appreciate you.
Can I ask Ms. Jones a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I've got to say that one of the things that stood out to me the most in the packet that you submitted was I guess it was a certificate of commendation
Yes, ma'am.
in 2018 from AC Transit.
Yes.
And that just looked like an amazing story, and exactly the kind of story that you need working with kids, not to equate the two. This was an adult, who needed that extra support and
Yes.
assistance. But kids often need it too. And, your qualifications sold it enough, but, I'll say that really sealed it for me. That kind of kindness is unusual.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Director, would you like to speak on this? Oh, absolutely.
First, Stephen Faisal, you guys know me, I've been here before. Nice to see you back, welcome, thank you. I just want to say on behalf of Venus, I don't know her that well because she's new, but I do want to say that she's a great asset to us. She comes to work with a smile, she greets everybody with kindness, she's courteous. She's a plus, and we like pluses.
Nice.
Thank you. Well, Vice Chair, I can't do better than that. I will say, she does meet the requirements in the rubric in terms of steps of experience. So, and school bus drivers is not just a Berkeley shortage, it's a state shortage. Every year that I was going to this conference with other merit districts, all of them, every time, school bus driver. So I definitely recommend a step 5. Thank you.
I'll move that we place at step 5, Venus Jones for school bus driver.
All right, thank you for that. And I just want to comment, as I've said before, I'm not a fan of moving people to step 5, but I think for our bus drivers, I think this is a great starting place, honestly, for our bus drivers in that position, because it's such a high demand position. So again, we appreciate you, and I second.
I'll also note that according to the Class and Comp study, this is a position that we are paying at median, in our area. So.
All right, next on the list is thank you, 8D, Ms. Roberts. Do we have someone here to speak for?
We do, Vice Chair. Just to introduce it very quickly, I think our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Tobias Espinosa, can speak to it in more detail than I can. However, I think the lesson here is, since this was brought to our attention by BCCE, it's extremely important that the principals who are the site administrators be not just aware of the rules, but enforcing them. And I think that unfortunately, from time to time, and again, I've been a teacher, I get it, but this was a convergence, in my opinion, looking back, of necessity and availability. And the person was there, she's not one to say no, and she did all that extra work. So I definitely think this was, to me, a no-brainer in terms of we have to do right by the employee. So that's my recommendation, that we do reclass. However, in regards to particular detail, other than what I just mentioned, I don't have any more detail, because we all found out from our friends in the union that this had occurred. So I think if there's more questions from the commission, I may have to defer to Tobias Espinosa on that. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Charlie. Do you have any comments?
Sure. So, a couple of thoughts. I don't know an organization that does not find itself in a situation like this from time to time. In my experience, the reason an organization finds itself in a circumstance like this from time to time is lack of controls, coupled with someone who understands pretty well how to use the system to get what they need. And it's complicated, because I'm sure that the principal, before doing this, must have asked for a school safety officer. And, I don't know what happened, didn't get one, or it didn't work out, or what have you. But these things are problematic because we owe this person a lot of out-of-class back pay for years with interest. So this is an expensive error to fix, which I assume we will fix accordingly back to 2020, right? Which is what, I'm looking here. Yeah, yeah. Well, we should at least fix what we've documented. Apropos to the reclass, and this is sort of why I asked about the school campus aid list earlier. This is such a different position from the school safety officer. This is not, somebody was in a near classification and, scope creep or, what have you. So I think really the right thing to do here, even though I realize that this employee has been doing this work for 4 years and counting, we probably should have them test to get on the school safety officer list, to follow our process. I don't doubt they will do well on that test. The real question that I have looking at this, and of course, this also ties to something else that is on our discussion agenda, I think. No, it's on our conference agenda, the payroll audit question. So the real question is, where else has this happened? Where else do we have these problems? And things like this help me understand why someone asked for a payroll audit, possibly. I don't think actually we would have caught this through a payroll audit. However, I get the idea. So anyway, I think my thought is we owe a lot of out-of-class back pay, and this is someone who should test for the role going forward.
Thank you for that. That's interesting. I didn't think that, I hadn't considered the need for testing for this employee.
Job classes so
So
far.
You make a really good point.
However, with the reclass, it's not a test, it's the accretion of the 2 years. So we established that she's been doing that work for 2 years. So that's why I'm recommending a reclass.
I get that, but because the job descriptions are so far apart, I'm interested in other opinions.
I I actually hadn't considered that, Commissioner. The facts of this just caught me so much off guard that came here prepared to make sure we make this employee whole and do what's right. But you bring up a good point, whether or not they should be tested for this position.
Do you want to, either of you, Erin,
Yeah,
because
can
you're
you
going to be
speak?
the one doing it. What's the argument for a reclass as an assurance of all the capabilities and skills and knowledge for the role?
Well, I believe that, analysis has been done on her work duties and the work she's been performing, and she has been performing the school safety officer duties for over 2 years. So if we're thinking about qualifications, I think that it was determined that she's definitely qualified.
Well, this brings up a lot of questions for me. Okay, so what would be the duty difference? So can you guys summarize, because I don't have them in front of me. I'm not prepared for that question, but it's one that needs to be explored. The difference between the job that she was hired for, which is the yard safety, yard duty, versus what we have her doing now.
School campus aide.
Thank you, school campus aide.
I don't have the job description in front of me either. What we did, originally, we were going to tackle this with the regular process, which is to interview and go back, but this seemed to me so egregious that I just needed to confirm with HR, with Erin, and with the team and with the union that she had been doing the work. So we know that she was assigned the school safety officer work. But I don't have anything else to add. I don't have that job description in front of me.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair for us to ask questions of you that you wouldn't have. Go ahead. Commissioner.
One thing I'll say is that the school campus aide position is envisioned to be a middle or elementary school position. So you're dealing with small children, generally speaking. Middle school, they're bigger kids, they're different issues. The campuses are a little different. They tend to be more open. So I think that there are real differences in the skills and the kind of training. And, I don't know this for sure if we do this here, but crowd management would be an example of one kind of training that a school safety officer should have that a school campus aide probably doesn't get here.
May I speak?
Yeah, no, I'm
Please,
done.
go ahead.
Thank you. She wasn't at the elementary level. She was actually at the junior high level when she was doing the safety officer work. She was classified incorrectly as a campus aide when she should have been classified as a safety officer, because that is the work she was doing at Longfellow, is the site that she was at. And that's the work that she had been doing all these years. There isn't a campus aide at any of the junior highs. So at all the other junior highs, at King, at Willard, there are safety officers, not school campus aides. That was one of the things that have brought all this about. Why would we have a school campus aide at a junior high when there aren't any? So that's, started this whole thing and then looking into it. So it would not be fair of us to ask a member or an employee who has been doing this work for many years to all of a sudden take a test for work that she has been doing for years. So it was told to the member, she's already under the impression, because this is what she was told, that she is being basically reclassed, and as a safety officer. So for us to kind of go back now and try to tell her that she will have to test for a position that she has been doing for years would not be right.
Yeah.
She's already working.
I'm sure
Yeah.
she is. For sure, what's right is to correct the pay. I'm concerned from a legal perspective that a school safety officer has responsibilities that really are qualitatively different than a school campus aide.
She's done the
And
trainings
the
too.
concern that I come at it from, and I understand, right? No school campus aide at a
No,
middle
but I'm saying
school.
she's done, you know how the safety officers have to have certain trainings?
Mhm.
She's done those trainings along with all the rest of the safety officers because she was at Longfellow with the other safety officers that's there.
How did she do the training?
That's what I'm telling you. So she was being treated as a safety officer and that is the work that she was doing. But she was classified as a school campus aide.
So I think what would be important from, kind of just shoring up the liability side of this is if we can really demonstrate that this is someone who's been trained in the same way school safety officers have been trained, I could support a reclass. If we can't substantiate that, I think it's someone who needs to test.
I think that along those same lines, we need to take care of this employee. It's clear that there's some something we owe this employee. I think the reclass is the right thing to do. I'd like to discuss how can we confirm that she has gotten the training and the certificates. I'm not sure what the site safety officers need, but to make sure she has the training without necessarily having to retest.
So I do have a proposed solution that I'm looking at the interim because she's going to have to live with what I'm proposing. But and I know Assistant Superintendent Tobias Espinosa has her hand up. But before we go to Samantha, I would recommend, at least at this time, to go ahead and try to take care of the out-of-class pay retro, and perhaps at the next meeting. Are you leaving?
Yeah, I have to log on my phone. I gotta get to school.
Where's my hug? Excuse me.
Sorry.
Now, how do we put that in the minutes?
Hug. So I would recommend we work with HR, and I'm looking at you, Aaron, that we work with HR to do the out of class piece, and that we provide some form of contemporaneous evidence that indicates the testing or the training or the school safety officer specific trainings that this employee attended to put the commissioner's minds at ease. Does that sound feasible? Go to Samantha. There, that's a good answer. Samantha?
Yes, we can definitely do the out of class pay as well as the find evidence of the trainings. I also I actually sort of had a clarifying thing. All of our safety officers go through annually training as required by Ed Code that is very specific to their job and all of this, which this person would be going through. I'm not sure what the qualifications are that are tested in the testing process. But I think if we were given the opportunity to, in a sense, be able to prove that this person is able to have demonstrated these skill sets, I would think that we would be able to meet that requirement without having it be an actual testing situation.
Thank you for that. And I don't disagree. If we can demonstrate that this person has, I mean, at this point, the background and the training that any other school safety officer would have had, if no events have happened that have presented risk, up until this point, we are kind of going from this point forward to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment, Samantha. We appreciate that. And Aaron.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that as far as like the minimum qualifications for the position, the requirements are that they graduate from high school and that they have 2 years of security, law enforcement, or related experience. So this person may have already screened in based on their experience working in BUSD.
Thank you. That's very comforting. Thank you. Okay, so,
So let's do two motions maybe.
what do you have?
So one motion is, to authorize the out of class pay, retro to as far back as we know this person has been doing this. Which it sounds like school year 2021 for sure,
At least.
right? Okay. Do we need to look further back? I don't know how we came up with 2021. The grandfathering, Samantha told us happened in 2019. So do we need to look at 1920 as well?
The admission of guilt from guilty parties only goes back to 2020. So we'd have to, kind of find out if there's anyone else, but it sounds,
I think we
Like
should
pretty-
ask the question.
okay.
I really do. I mean, just given the history here, if this was a wage and hour problem, that came to us through a regulator, we'd be looking back. So, yeah. All right, so that's the first.
So let me clarify that we
Yeah.
make sure the employee is made whole retroactively from as far back as, yes, from as far back as records allow. So the date on the
Right.
paper, this may or may not be correct. So we're authorizing that the employee get paid from as far back as our records allow for you to research. Okay.
And this would be, are we a 7-year retention? What's our document retention here?
For which,
Payroll records. Yeah.
God. What it's supposed to be or what it is?
How about what we say it is?
I think under, definitely under FLSA, it's 10. I think we do 7, but I don't know why we do 7. Frankly, it's not my area of expertise. That must have something to do with state ed code.
Well, whatever we say we do, we should do.
Yeah.
If we have records that go further back, I would look at them.
I see Sam's hand is up. She probably knows the answer to this.
So document retention in payroll, it matters on which documents we're talking about. The actual physical timesheet types of things are 9 years. But the records of actually paying the person, like the W-2s and the paycheck stubs, is indefinitely. So there is no date that we can destroy those documents. So we have all of that. My question would be, the only reason we don't go back further than 2020 in terms of our knowledge is we have access to the people who were in charge of this position back to 2020. The person who was in charge prior to that no longer is an employee with the district and did not leave the district on the best of terms. So I don't think that person would be willing to speak to us about it.
No, it probably wouldn't. We'd have to ask the employee.
Right.
Right.
So we're fine with that.
All right,
Thank you.
I think that's the right thing to do. The employee can represent, maybe in 1920, this wasn't an issue. They did campus supervisor stuff and it's not a big deal. Okay, so out of class pay, back to,
As far as the records allow.
right. As far as is represented, right? 2021, through a supervisor we have already, and anything earlier is the employee's representation.
She would be a record.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So that's my first
Okay. And you have,
motion.
I second that.
Okay. Okay. Just making a note. All right, I think my second motion is that we authorize our commission to do a reclass so long as there is adequate documentation that shows that the employee has received the training, that is basically equivalent to the minimum quals, which is 2 years of law enforcement. If you're an entry-level law enforcement security kind of person, you know, there's a pretty well accepted curriculum of things you're going to learn. And if that person has had that training, I'm comfortable with a reclass.
I think we should, I think that's a little bit, I think that's too much. I don't think the employee should have any burden in this area. So I think the burden should be on the district. If there, I would want to approve this reclass, and if the PC determines that there is training needed, then it is on us in the district to make sure this employee gets whatever they need to make sure they're qualified for this position.
It's got to be ASAP though, because they're doing the
They've been
work
here
now.
for 8 years. They've been here for plenty of time. So I don't think anyone's going to drag their feet, but I don't want any, I don't think we should, I don't think the employee should have any angst, any nervousness about their position in any way. So I think the mistake is on the district. It's on us to correct it. So I don't think the employee should feel any negative way about this process. So
I think I would add to that simply that if there is a deficit, because you know what happens, Murphy's Law, right? You know, the incident comes up for which this person wasn't trained and someone is hurt or injured. And then, you know, the lawyers show up and they look at us and say, well, wait a minute, you know, what was the history of this person? And it's clear that there was a training gap. If we want to go that way, and I understand why you're suggesting that, this training has to be immediate if there is a gap.
So I'm sure there won't be any delay in the training, but I don't want this to have I don't want the employee to feel as if there's anything over their head that they could possibly in any way lose their job as long as they attend the train, as long as they do their job, attend the trainings. If we determine as a PC, there's training to be done. The gap and the gap of liability is already there. There's no way to fix that gap of liability. Whatever happened could have happened 3 years ago. There's no way to fix that gap in liability if there's a lack in training. The question here is about the employee. So I move that we approve the reclass as submitted. And that if we as a PC determine that there's training that needs to be done, then we make sure that the employee has it. And if there isn't, then we should have something in their file to say this employee has met all qualifications for this position.
Okay, so just to restate, to make sure I understand it, we're approving a reclass along with an evaluation of the training that the employee has received. And if there are any gaps, the district provides that training timely.
So that's the overall request. The approval is just of the reclass as submitted because the employee should.
Got to be together.
Doesn't need to be together.
I can't approve it. I can't agree if it's not
It
together.
does not need to be together.
Then I can't agree.
That's your right.
I know, I know,
That's-
but-
We don't always have to agree, but
Why can't we put them together?
because I don't think that's fair to the employee. We've asked this employee to work out a class for how many years, and now it's come to our attention, oh, employee, we made a mistake, sorry.
I think we're saying the same thing, though. I'm saying that it's incumbent on the district to provide the training. And it's got to be provided, you know, right away if there is a gap.
And what happens if it's not?
Then we have a liability and we have an issue. You know, I want to make sure the district understands this is not, you know, we'll get to it, you know, on October 12th, you know, when we have a staff training day, or January 28th, when we have a staff training day. There are only a very few staff training days, you know, PD days at BUSD.
We do not have purview over the district. All we have purview over is this employee's request today, and they need to be made whole. That is the ASAP in front of me. This employee needs to be made whole and made comfortable that we appreciate them at this district, and we're not going to have them worry about their job in case ASAP takes on a political term because there's turnover in HR, there's turnover here. What is ASAP?
Yeah, there's also turnover in where Longfellow is positioned right now. I mean, it's, you know, that person is working at Longfellow at the Berkeley Adult School, basically, you know, at a new place. That's a real risk.
Risk
They're actually not working at Longfellow.
Oh, where are they working?
They are currently at BTA,
Okay,
which is where we had a vacancy in school safety officers.
all right, so even more, this is the big kids, these are the high school kids. I really worry about the liability. I feel that very strongly because I've been on the wrong end of this problem.
The liability portion is not our purview, and we can't stop it because if there are some issues, it could have happened 8 years ago and we just don't know. it
Well,
yet.
we
That's
do
not our issue.
have the,
Our issue is the employee.
no, our issue is that the employee is qualified. That's our job.
And that's what we're gonna make sure happens through training.
But our normal process to make sure someone is qualified is to have them retest. We have people who can work out of class. And this is not what out of class contemplates. This is too out of class for what this person has been doing. It's too out of class.
This
Right.
is a unique situation that requires a unique decision. And the liability portion is on the district for allowing this to happen in the first place. There's nothing we can do about that. The only thing we can do now is to make sure this employee, now that it's come to our attention, is properly trained. Anything else, we're opening up, or if you want to consider liability, we'll open up a lawsuit from the employee.
Well,
for-
it's
for-
not our obligation necessarily to make sure they're properly trained. It's our obligation to make sure they are qualified to do the work. Now that we know that someone who never tested, who was grandfathered in unusual circumstances, now that we know, our obligation is to make sure if this is a person who's continuing in that work, that they're qualified. That's our obligation. And I am worried that at the expense of liability, I want to support employees too, but not at the expense of, a bad situation where somebody looks at us and says, why didn't you, confirm the person's qualifications?
May I insert something? Because
Please.
if you don't agree, then we're at an impasse today, right? So I might just add, and I agree with you, Commissioner Goldstein. But I also agree with Commissioner Carter to the extent that this employee was just doing what she was asked. And when we look at the reclassification language, and when I've done reclasses, I'm looking for a demonstration that there's been the accretion of those duties, like that the person has been assigned at least 2 years of duties outside their class. That's not even in question here. We have two principals, both admitting, well, yeah, every day I give this person this work. That's not even in debate, like that's not even debatable. So, I mean, I do think that we can do both things, Commissioner Goldstein. I think that we can move forward with the reclass on the basis of the 2-year accretion. But at the same time, we have Samantha here. Samantha can commit to making sure the person has training. And I think, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd be able to find out if they had attended these trainings pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, we can get that information maybe from the classified professional development coordinator. Just try to see, Paula, try to see where what trainings she's attended, PD she's done.
Right. No, I think we need to. And if there's a gap, I'm just kind of back to, if there's a gap, what happens?
Well, so what we're talking about now is, was the person properly trained, and do we need to make sure that they have that training?
Right.
I think,
And I understand it is likely if they every year have taken the annual training, but I don't know if they have done that, right?
well, we have already set a precedent for approving reclasses based on the work performed. We've already done that. We've never gone back and said, well, they've been performing the work for more than 2 years, but do they have the accounting background, or do they have, so we.
I agreed,
Yeah.
but school safety officer is a unique role in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but anyone working with kids, there's always a liability factor, right?
Right, but
Yeah.
most significantly
Yeah.
for a school safety officer, right? That's what Uvalde was all about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, of course.
So-
I think that so the commissioners have, you have all have approved things and trusted me and my team to make sure that what you have asked of us gets done. You've always done that. That's not going to change with Erin and her team. I think that if the ask is, we'll do the reclass, but we need to have assurance by the next meeting that they have attended this training, I think that that can be done. That's what I would suggest.
I can live with that.
Okay.
So this is to say then that your motion, if we restate what it is or recap, is to do the reclass and to have a report at the September meeting about, is the training adequate or is it not? Okay. Okay,
Now,
prayer is a hope.
now I serve my role as secretary so that there can be a motion, but I can't move forward the motion. Oh, Mildred. Mildred has her hand up.
Mildred, go ahead, please. I don't have that.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to share with you guys that you were talking just about the training, so I just want to give you information that there is another training getting ready to come up for safety officers. And I think that training, if Samantha's here, we were just talking about it, and I think that training is either I think it's October 9th or something like that. It's either 7th, yeah, October 7th, something like that. That training is coming up for safety officers. Just to let Heidi know, just to rest assured that there is, because they do it every year. And she did do it last year also. I just text her.
Thank you. Let's
thank
make
you.
sure we know what our training records show.
Okay, Heidi.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Either a class or a weekend, depending on if there's space in this class or not.
Are we done? Or are you gonna mute?
I think this is your motion.
Yeah, it's your motion.
Okay, I motion that we approve the reclass as submitted with the assurance that we'll get proof of training next
September meeting.
September meeting.
All right, I'll second.
Thank you for listening.
All right.
Okay, next on the agenda is the request for payroll audit. Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Hernandez, would you like to speak on that?
Hello, everyone. So I have I'd just like to begin my discussion with, I have 6 questions. And I'd like to start with one, or I could throw them all out there, but the first one is, I just want to ask the questions. What is a periodic audit of all payrolls? And I would like to have a discussion on that, or like to even know what that is. I do have 5 more. I don't know if you want me to ask them all, or I could just.
Yeah, why don't you ask them all? I'm not sure. They may interrelate.
How often is the period of the period audits? So define, how often that is. When was the last time a periodic payroll audit was done? When was it done? How many payroll audits have been done in the last 3 years? When is the next payroll audit scheduled? Who has access to the payroll audit information? Those are my 6 questions.
Joint tackle, or do you want to tackle? Why don't I start? You better get used to this. This is going to be your world next. Yeah, let's throw you in the pool. So Frank, I think to tackle so let me just go through your questions real quick. So how often is the period of audits? When was the last time and how many and who has? So we have not done the audit in the conventional sense as it's written in the merit rules. And the reason we haven't done an audit in terms of a formal audit is because we're auditing all the time. And what I mean by that is that when I started here, I actually asked this question. And what they did is they gave me and Aaron access to what's called a personnel action form. So the personnel action form is an electronic means of, so it has the school site, the classification, the exempt status, like full-time, part-time, sub, and then the budget line. And I look at it just to make sure the money's there. I have no idea where their budget, what the budget lines trace back to usually. And then the term, limited term versus PCS. So we have the ability, and we do this, of calling. So for instance, I'll give you one example, and I'll mention it. It was in the payroll department, and there was an out-of-class assignment that was up for renewal, and it came to me. So I was able to pick up the phone and say, why is this person still acting out of class? We've backfilled. And then I rejected it. So when we have that ability and that authority, it makes the need for an audit somewhat nil because we're involved in it. Now, that said, where it kind of falls apart is that this mechanism only works if they send us and include the PC as part of this. More often than not, I will say to the commissioners, I've heard of some exceptions, but I would say 90-ish, 95% of the time, to my knowledge, I've been included. And the only reason I say that is because we have found a couple of exceptions where the exception being that the manager didn't go through payroll and didn't do a PAF. But I would argue that the audit wouldn't catch those because the audit assumes that the data has been entered into the system. But if you don't enter data into the system, you're not going to catch it. So that's how we've been able to comply with the rules. I think the rules were written, the spirit of them are written as such to allow us to do these checks if they didn't include us. So for example, let's say I had asked the question in my first month and I said, hey, how do you hire people? I want to see the lists. And they had said, well, no, you get to see the list once a month. I'd probably be doing weekly audits because it would mean work for my team, like especially with the limited terms. But because we're involved and we are given the ability to approve them or deny them, we don't do an audit.
Should I comment or?
Want to
ask
add
another
anything
question?
to, sorry. Do you want to add anything or if there's a
Go
question?
ahead. You have another question?
Yeah,
Frank?
please.
I mean, I got
So
the rest of them, I guess.
it sounds like he addressed a couple of them in that one, maybe even three. Did you have some?
So I just have concerns because, what is a payroll audit? I still don't know what a payroll audit is. He didn't answer that question. And my concern is if you don't know what a payroll audit is, or you're not willing to explain it, then how do you know what a payroll audit does for us? So I have concerns because, I have brought my concerns many times to the PC, to HR, and just here. I've actually brought this here. We have issues. We have seen this tonight. What happens when people slip through the cracks? And this happens a lot. How often? I have no clue. I can't tell you how often it happens. I can tell you how many times I've seen it. But I think a payroll audit would catch some of it or not, or maybe all of it. But I don't think that question's been answered because it hasn't been done.
So let me let me clarify. So let's make sure we stay focused on what you're asking, which is not what the payroll audit will do for you. I think that's something you're going to summarize from your questions that you asked, what it's going to do for you, and if it can catch the issue we had tonight. I think for clarity's purpose, you have some really good questions, like what is a payroll audit? You know, Frank, I'm not sure what it is either. I think let's stay with that, and then let's knock these questions out one at a time.
So I think the way I would define a payroll audit is that I would ask HR and payroll for a report, whether it be weekly or quarterly. It would have to be on a, we pay monthly, but I don't think that would have, I think we could still get a bi-monthly report because it's done on the timesheets electronically. I would ask payroll for, I want to have a payroll audit of BTA and BHS starting January 1 to January 30th. I need all the payroll records, including job classification and pay rates. That report would be given to me. That I believe would be a payroll audit as I would define it. Going back to my original answer, I think if the intent is a checks and balance, which I believe our role is definitely a checks and balance for limited term assignments, PCS, making sure people are hired on the list, all those things. Because we are included in the personnel action process. Oh, I'm sorry.
PCS.
What's PC?
Permanent civil,
Thank you.
yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
got it. Okay.
Sorry, I should stay away from acronyms. But so for the PAF, the Personnel Action Forum, because we've been included, our audits actually are more internal. I wouldn't define them as payroll audits. I'll give you an example.
So I don't want to cut, I guess I do want to cut you off.
Sure, cut me off.
So,
I'm good with that.
so before we go into, I'm sure Frank's going to have some follow-up questions. So let's make sure we stay on point. Before we go into what it will do for you, I'm still a little foggy on what it actually is. Are you getting if you were to get this report, which we haven't been getting because we have other mechanisms in place, if you were to get this report, what would it show? Would you have employees, their position, their location, and their hours, or just the hours, their positions, and not the location? What would this audit show?
Yeah, I thought I answered that, but I'll go over it again. So let's just say as an example, I'm going to do a payroll audit. I would say, I want to know at Berkeley High School, all the school safety officers pay from January 1 until, January 30th. That would include job classes, hire dates, pay rates, overtime. It would include the limited term folks. It would include the substitutes. It would include the permanent people. So the payroll audit would include all of the information pertaining to the employees who have been paid for that pay cycle. That would be a payroll audit. Sure.
I am not an expert in how BUSD does it, but generally speaking, to understand how payroll audits work as an entity, as a public entity, BUSD is subject to an annual audit, an internal audit. They have to be. It's part of being a public entity. And generally what that audit does is it says you had a budget and your budget said you had so many people doing so many jobs and you were going to pay them so much money. And when the payroll audit occurs, that's what it checks against. So it's meant to look for, the big kinds of fraud, like, we've been reading about in the paper, the school district that hired, the meditation coach at $600,000 a year. It's looking for that. So I'm pretty sure we have at least, one annual audit that does that, checks against budget. I think probably what it is that you are trying to understand is something a little different. And I would actually like to understand better, what it is that you're looking for, because a gross audit may not be the right way to find it. As we just saw with Paradise Roberts, we never would have found it because we've been paying her wrong this whole time, and it matched what the budget said. The budget had her as, a school campus aide. We never would have found it.
So
So the kinds of variances that you are looking for are definitely things that could be found. I don't know that our merit rules, that we have quoted here, are set up for that. I think it's something we'd have to do in partnership
So
with
let's,
finance.
let me take a step in here. I'm not comfortable with us assuming what Frank's gonna ask and what he wants from this information. We can all assume what he wants, but he hasn't asked that question yet. We're just trying to get through his questions that he has asked, which is, I think you've got the best answer so far of what or not it is to our understanding. From the collective here, I think that's about as much as you're gonna get from us. If you need more, I think that's maybe a one-on-one with Aaron, if you want.
I think I got it.
And the next question you had is how often? I
Right.
think you had that question answered, which is
No,
never.
I didn't hear that.
How
How often?
Go ahead, you want to answer?
Every day.
Every day.
Real, for the merit rules, you do it every day.
So I'll go through the process one more time. So every day, there is a personnel action form that is submitted to the PC for approval. It is submitted to the executive director for approval. And that is a position, for example, Venus Jones, bus driver, school, I then go in and check Venus Jones, permanent, she's on a list, pay rate is okay, it's budgeted, it's at this school, approved. Those are the items that we're checking, because we're checking for limited term assignment, we're checking for pay rate, we're checking for steps, we're checking to make sure all the information is correct and to make sure the person's on the list and that they're not limited term. So yes, every day that's checked.
Let me clarify. Let me make sure, let me restate that clarification. So what our director is saying is we don't do a payroll audit every day, but our mechanisms are the PAFs, which we do check every day and every day they come in. But the audit itself would be enormous for the district or even one classification. Aaron, please.
I also want to bring to your attention that it mentions also like a payroll or service report. So for example, I'm thinking just looking at what the personnel director should be checking for, like transfers, change of assignments, new hires, all of that gets sent to the director bi-monthly before a board meeting. So then the personnel director receives a report of all personnel activity for the month and has to approve it before it can go to the board. So that should be including the limited term assignments. It should be including all of the changes in FTE, transfers, promotions, and everything like that. So that is a type of service report that's mentioned here as well. So as far as just payroll audit, I'm not sure what that would look like here because we've never run an audit through payroll.
So let me summarize and you guys can jump in if I'm off. We're not doing a payroll audit. We have steps in place, things in place to try and catch what we're assuming you're going to ask next. But we haven't asked the question yet. But there are other mechanisms we have in place to help us try to identify problems that pop up. No, we didn't catch the last one, but we have mechanisms in place. But to answer your question, how often? We don't. What is an audit? You got the best answer we have. The next one was, when was the last audit done? It wasn't.
It was yesterday, right?
Based on our mechanisms, yes, but as it is defined in the merit rules, it has not been done. It was just too much for our department. It'd be too many people.
So I just want to say it's been done in the past. BCCE has requested and had audits done. This, this request isn't the first time from BCC. It's been done in the past. It just hasn't been done in the last 3 years that I know of. And I'm not even sure, again, what it is. I do know if you read this section, if there is something that comes up that the personnel director finds that's not with the merit rules, they should be acting upon it. They should be doing something about it. And that has not happened to my knowledge. And I have brought this up many times with the Personnel Commission. Okay, go ahead, stop me.
Yeah, so just so we can stay on point, I think.
Yeah.
I think the payroll audit is a great question. whether or not there's gonna be some disagreement about whether or not it's been done, because we have mechanisms in place. And just because you don't see them as we address the issues that come up, doesn't mean they're not being addressed. So they are being addressed. The payroll audit is,
Do you have the merit rules in front of you?
do I have the,
Yeah, I mean, was it the second paragraph? Is it the second one? Maybe it's the third one. Sorry. It talks about looking at the payroll as it comes in. But then it also has another section where it talks about doing a payroll audit. There are two separate things, and it says the words are shall. It's not like, well, you did the first one, so you don't have to do the second one. It doesn't say that. It says you shall do a payroll audit.
well, that's not, we're addressing your 6 questions.
Okay.
So that, I mean, if that's another question, then we can address that, I suppose. But that would be sort of beating a dead horse, because we've made it clear that we're not doing an audit. There's other mechanisms in place.
Okay.
So we're not doing, the audit as it is laid out and spelled out is not being done. So any questions about the results from that audit would be like beating a dead horse, because we're not doing it. Yes.
I'm curious if you know the audit has been done previously, do you know when? So that we can look at what it looked like?
No, it's been stated to me from previous officers, and we're talking
I suppose that we
maybe
could
10
ask
years ago.
our
at
assistant
least.
superintendent for finance, because I can't imagine that there would be a payroll audit without the cooperation of that department. So, from a document retention perspective, if there's been something, at least in the last several years,
It was
we
stated
should
to
be
me,
able to see it, to understand what it is. Because, what I'm hearing makes sense. A full bore payroll audit, as I said, is done annually for the entity, and it's a big deal. It's a big job. It's a lot of stuff. And that's one chunk that we can certainly reference, right? I think what Charlie is bringing up, and as I read the rules, what we're trying to make sure is that, Joe Smith, who wasn't on the hire list, for a job, is not on the payroll in that job. That's what we're trying to make sure doesn't happen, right? From an audit, and that, the FTE is, matches to what we said, and the budget matches to what we said. And that is really the PAF process that Charlie described. I think sometimes, the real question, because there is a big audit, is better to try to understand when there are big exceptions. And Paradise is going to be a big exception. There's going to be a big chunk of money that we're going to pay out, that is not credited, across a bunch of periods. It's a big retro payout. It's going to show up once. It's going to be a big amount. Based on my experience here, I feel like the PAF process is a pretty solid process to make sure that we know who that person is who got hired on, and that they were somebody on the list. Less so is, do we have the Paradise Roberts problem? How many people are working out of class, and when do we find out about it? And, what kind of restitution and remedy problem, does it create later? I think is the bigger problem, but it kind of goes back to, what you said earlier. You asked 6 basic questions, and those are good questions, but I think what I'd like to know is what it is that you suspect is going on that you would really like to find out about.
That would be for another meeting. The question today is, you're requesting a payroll audit. And
Yes.
attached to that question, attached to that request, you're asking these 6 questions, which we're doing our best to answer. I hesitate to answer questions that hasn't been asked, not to deter Frank from asking, but to keep the meeting on pace, because it can go in 5 different directions that the asker may not even want or need. So go ahead.
So I assume the next payroll audit is tomorrow. Can I get that information? That was my last question. How do I get that information? How do I get the payroll audit information?
I would say this is a good start. As you can tell, the actual payroll audit is not being done on a regular basis, because we have other mechanisms in place to get the information that we need, right? So your request has been noted. I believe our director and intern are here. Yes,
If I may, Vice Chair, so the decision to be very involved in the PAF was not just to meet the requirements, but there's an important thing that the union has to consider here. And that is the very contemporaneous nature of finding a discrepancy. The old language assumes that a payroll audit would be done because it's a payroll audit, it would be done on a payroll cycle. What happens is if I was to go ahead and go with that mechanism and go with the payroll audit, the problem with that is that today you hire someone that's not on the list who shouldn't be, and I get my audit on September 30th. Now I owe that person back pay. So what we have in place is absolutely the best mechanism for that reason alone. Keep in mind too, and this is, I'm not going to steal Commissioner Roeder's thunder because he's not here, but there are major revisions to this section for that reason. Because I believe, and I have to believe because I was 3 at the time this was last done, and I'm 54, so that's a long time ago. Back in the day, it was all done by hand, probably. And a payroll audit made a lot more sense because, you know, you had school sites, people signing in on sheets, and you probably had one person who once a month said, did we pay everybody correctly? That is the spirit of the payroll audit. To Vice Chair's question, I think that we should answer the questions that you're asking. And in terms of a payroll audit in the sense of the strictest interpretation in the rules, I think a better thing to maybe ask, I would recommend, is an information request. Just as both commissioners have mentioned, if there is something that you are asking of the PC in terms of information, we can find that. But we can't produce a payroll audit in the form, the way it's written, when that, it just doesn't exist.
so what could we produce for the union? And with the help, of course. payroll.
That depends on the information that's being asked, right?
Well, the information, according to the submission here, is a payroll audit. They're requesting a payroll audit.
Right, but we would have audited things that have already been corrected.
So they didn't ask for corrections. They didn't ask for us to make corrections. They didn't ask for us to find mistakes. They
Correct.
just asked this request, if I'm reading it clearly, they want, correct me if I'm wrong, a payroll audit. Is that something we can provide?
Then that would be provided every board meeting with Malika's report. Because Malika sends us a report of everyone that is going, all the new hires that go to the board for approval. And that's done how often?
Well, that report goes to every board meeting, so usually twice a month. That report, yeah.
And that is a payroll audit. So I'm not familiar with that report. Is that a payroll audit?
It's called a personnel report. I guess we'd have to be really specific about what we're looking for from a payroll audit. What fields, and I believe Frank has requested information. I don't know if it relates to this item, but I know he has submitted a pretty large request that the district is working on getting together.
So you have requested.
Recently, yes. And you remember I put this on the agenda in June. Just, you know, so it's
May
not
I
just-
ask,
Yeah,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
curious, the request you made of the district under Public Records Act or something else?
It's a request for information, yeah. Yes,
Under Public Records Act. So it's a request that we could see as well,
Yeah,
to see what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be important to know.
It was given to the district, but we could look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, is that something
Aaron can
we can
provide
get?
it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so given what we've found out here about the actual report, what could the PC produce for Frank by the next meeting? Is it a copy from what we're getting from the district? Is it, if nothing, it's nothing. Let's tell him that there's nothing we can produce, but let's give him an answer. Is there something that we can produce for him? If not, if it's an HR deal, does anybody know? 'Cause, you know, I don't know if.
I'm still not clear about what actual payroll information we're trying to get.
Got
Yeah,
it. Okay,
produce
got
it.
it. We need more clarity. We need more clarity. So
so Charlie said what a payroll audit was, right? So basically, everybody who works and is getting paid, who's on the payroll, correct?
Sure, that's.
So my concern, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My concern is that not everybody who's working under the union BCCE contract or doing our work that we're under is being processed through the merit commission. And it's been an ongoing issue way before I got here. I mean, this has been going on forever. We heard, I
So
could probably bring in a president from every time period and they could probably tell you the same story I'm doing right now. And then, I don't know if this is the time and place, but just say I bring something up to the director and point out this, you know, this person isn't in this position correctly. What is their obligation?
So that's a different question.
That's a different question.
That is a
Fine.
different question. So I think what we're coming to clarity here is what you're asking for won't answer the question. So, and what you're
It
asking.
does. I'm sorry. I forgot one thing.
Go ahead.
If I don't have the payroll audit that shows me all the information, how do I know?
So
I have no information in front of me to try to figure out who's working where and what, just like Charlie doesn't have.
So I think a better request, so as you can tell, the payroll audit isn't something we're withholding. The payroll audit is not something that is easily attainable. So it's not something we have and won't give you. It's something that's not easily attainable. And we need more clarity. So if there's information that you're looking for, job, location, number of employees, temporary,
Position control report is what he's looking for.
Twice a year.
so give us the exact definition of what you're looking for and we'll try and get that information. But the payroll audit, you may be asking for the wrong piece of information because clearly the people here we want to give you what you need. The payroll audit may not be the right way to go, not to mention we're not clear on exactly what information is going to come from the payroll audit. It may be something that's confidential we can't even give you.
May I?
Go,
Yeah.
Goldstein has.
Before I jump out of my skin, right? So, thank you for clarifying. That helped me understand what you're going after. If what you want to understand is, does our district hire people outside of the merit system for jobs that are included in your CBA as represented jobs?
Correct.
Yes, I have it
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. I think there are two things that you want. And one of them I know periodically makes an appearance in board materials, but you could ask both HR and I think finance for this, but I think HR owns it. It's called a position control report. You've probably seen that. And that's the list that the district works from for jobs that are, run through our payroll, people who are our employees. Folks who are not necessarily employees, right, would be paid in a different way, presumably as 1099 contractors. So another thing you could ask for, and I think this probably would be from finance because these people don't run through the payroll, but they get paid by the district. So it would be a question for finance is, who's on the 1099 list being paid 1099? If you wanted the names of just everyone who gets a check through payroll, they should have a position, right? Right? You wouldn't know what the check amount was, granularity wise, it wouldn't be appropriate to share that. But if you were just looking for names, against who you understood to be employees versus other people, that could be something that you could ask for. And again, that finance owns the payroll. They run the payroll. They would do the extracts. I don't see that we would add a lot of value because if there were names on there that we didn't recognize, we would look at it and tell you that, but we couldn't tell you who they were, what, more about what they were doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I understand what you're saying. And that really is not my concern.
Mhm.
My concern is if you literally hire somebody off the street to come in and do this work, what mechanism is available to any of us to catch that? And the be here, 7,402 is one way we could stop it. But it won't be, nobody wants to use it.
I don't know that it would stop it. If what you're worried about is the meditation manager for $600,000.
No, what I'm worried about is that you're gonna hire five custodians for 6 months to do some work. There's no vacancies for those positions.
Mhm.
They don't go through the merit system. They don't go through any system. They just literally pull them off the street and they put them in a position.
So this is why I'm saying a 1099 versus an employee. An employee runs through payroll, a W-2 employee. You've heard that phrase, right? You're a W-2 employee.
Yeah.
You're paid through the payroll, you get a W-2 at the end of the year. If you are not a W-2 employee because you're a contractor, because you're a temporary, because you're something else, you are still paid by the district, but you're not paid through the payroll. You're paid through the payroll as a 1099. It's the 1099 classification. Because I think what Charlie is telling you is anyone who is an employee, our system is a personnel action form that he knows about, that he checks against our lists, so he knows who those people are and that they've been properly entered. For people who are not on his list, you could get, as I said before, just a list of names from payroll. It's going to include faculty, and he has no idea, of the dimensions of all the faculty folks. There's unrepresented, right? You don't have all that, so that there are a lot of people who may run through the payroll that we just don't have visibility to.
Okay.
So let me sit down. I think we have some hands raised. Can we go ahead and take them in order? Whoever raised their hands first, I can't see. Go ahead, Mildred.
Hi, you guys. Thank you. Listening to, and excuse me for anything that I missed. What Frank is asking for is a payroll report. It wouldn't be a position control report because a position control report will only give him salaried employees. And that's not what he's asking for. What he's asking for is more so as a payroll report with location. Can you guys understand? Because I know I got this mask on. Hold on. I just got a lot of students coming through here. It's a payroll report with location, because what we're trying to catch and what we're trying to see, for example, we had an employee that we just found out had been working in a department for years that there wasn't like a PAF, there wasn't anything that even showed why or when this employee was working in the department. And that's not their assignment. So what we're trying to see and find is where employees that's working hourly. So we want reports that is showing limited term and hourly employees. Does that make sense? So it's more so a payroll report with location, and that will come from payroll. So it is considered a payroll audit. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying?
Yep.
But it's not a position control report, and it wouldn't come from HR either. It will come from payroll.
Got it. Well, the position control report was a suggestion. Frank has.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I
probably caught the tail end.
It's fine. We have, thank you for that, Mildred. Thank you. And we have another hand raised.
Samantha.
Samantha, go ahead, please.
So, yes, I agree with Mildred that it would be a payroll report, because what you're trying to capture is who turns in timesheets and is getting paid on the hourly scale, as opposed to the people who are in positions. But the issue is you would need to have the personnel, the position control report to compare to that, to be able to tell whether it's extra pay versus where we have a brand new person who's just getting paid that way and all of that. And if it's a limited term position, it's a classified position that they're working in, and it's therefore limited term, there should be a PAF for each one of those positions that does go through the executive director of classified. And so you would need both of those, because otherwise it's just a report. It's not an audit. So if you're asking for an audit, we need to have two things to compare to be able to actually have an audit. And so I have no problem with helping get those, that information. I also wanted to clarify that the request that the union made was not as a public records request. It was actually as a part of EERA, as part of negotiations, which is a different area of law. So I just wanted to clarify that it could go either way, a request, but that was what was submitted. So, but we have no problem providing those reports. We just need requests for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Samantha. Okay. Do we have any other comments?
I might just add one thing that might inform the discussion moving beyond me leaving. And this is going to blow everyone's mind, but people keep secrets from me. They don't tell me things. They literally don't tell me. Somebody will get hired and I don't know about it. It happens. And I'm sorry, it's going to happen to you too. I know you're smarter and cuter, but it's going to happen to you as well. So in all seriousness, Frank, I mean, I definitely appreciate where you're coming from, but there are things that we find out, that we're like, who is this person? Where'd this person come from? Where, and they intentionally may not let us know about it.
Or unintentionally.
I'm sorry?
Or unintentionally.
That happens too. Yeah, both of those things happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe just one last comment. Maybe you've looked at this. The entity audit that is done annually looks at payroll controls. And the whole idea of payroll controls is, that sort of stuff shouldn't happen, where someone is hired without the proper documentation, et cetera. The entity audit is not going to catch everybody, but, it's professionally done audit. I don't know who our auditors are. Who do we use? Deloitte's a no name.
Yeah, they used the big one last year.
Okay, and most of the time you use the same auditor because if you switch auditors too frequently, that's a problem. So it just might be worth looking at asking, for that summary of that entity report, and it will, if controls are weak, it'll call out weak controls.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to know. It's important for finance to know because they bleed money when controls are weak.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I know-
Wrap this up.
Yeah. The whole purpose of me asking for the audit is not for me to do the audit, right? Not for me to get the information and figure it out. It's what it says in the merit rules for the PC to do the audit. That's why it's in the merit rules. They're supposed to do the audit. My question is, how do I get that information? I disagree. There's all the time, like I said, people get in positions that's not done correctly. And the reason why that happens, in my opinion, because nobody enforces the rules except for the union. And it's hard when we're at, we got 20-something sites to enforce it. Then when we do bring it to, people who can enforce it, they don't do it. And it's just ongoing. And if the principals, the admins knew that they're not supposed to do this, they wouldn't do it. But no one tells them they're not supposed to do it.
Fair concern. I think we have one more hand raised and we're going to move on. Do we have Samantha's hand? Sam, can you go ahead? Samantha.
So our auditors, as far as I know, for the last few years have been Crow is the name of that company. And they do a report that goes to the board every year. So if you're interested in that information, that's where you can get that. And I believe that Izzy is actually on the audit committee that reviews those results and reports on them to the board. I don't disagree with Frank that things do happen, but I also do disagree that people who can make a change don't do anything, because Charlie and I have demonstrated multiple times over the last 3 years that we've been working together, catching these things and fixing them. And so I actually believe that is a very false statement, that once we do become aware of them, we do take care of things. Do we have the ability to withhold pay like the merit rules suggest there? No, that's illegal and has been deemed illegal, period. So we wouldn't be able to institute that rule anyway, nor does the merit commission, the personnel commission or the merit rules allow us to have authority over who we pay or what we pay. But there is the fact that we do fix things as soon as they become aware, we become aware of them. And yes, unfortunately, mistakes happen. People do things thinking they're just solving a minor issue and they don't realize the repercussions. But we have fixed multiple things in my 5 years here as soon as I've known about them.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that comment. And so we can wrap this up. I think we need to, for you, Frank, before you leave, I think the payroll audit request that's in writing here may not be appropriate, given the information you've gotten. Maybe you want to amend that request to position control and a payroll report? As Samantha,
Sam talked about.
as Sam, one of the things that Samantha talked about. And so granted, under the merit rules, those two audits should land at the PC. The reason that they haven't, just so you know, the reason they haven't, we think we have mechanisms in place to catch that. So I think the next recommendation would be for those two reports, and then we can compare over a period of time if we're missing something.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you, Frank. Thanks. All right, I think that wraps up any more hands online? No, all right. All right, let's move on to the discussion items. First of the list is class and comp study personnel for recommendations. All right, Charlie, you got away, you almost got away in time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll keep it my comments brief because not only did I speak to this earlier, but looking at the time here, it's 6:50. So I want to be able to allow enough time for all the other items. I will say, in a spirit of full transparency, that I have had several high-level district employees who have come to me and said, we need the PC to say something so we can start moving things forward. And that is not just for negotiation, but to maybe take some action on some of the items that are in the recommendation. That said, we did promise that at the end of the report, we would give the district some direction or some recommendation. And I think even if we're not speaking on the entirety of the report, which is somewhat unrealistic, I gave two examples earlier of things that we may be able to move forward. So I do think that we should give the district some direction on something. That's, again, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Goldstein?
Sure. So based on my reading of, I think it is largely the phase 4 report that included, not only the listing of the benchmark roles and whether they were at the median, above the median, below the median. It also included, by each phase 1, 2, and 3 positions that were reviewed, sort of their summary of actions that they thought we should take. So for phase 1, there were 9 change recommendations. 4 of them looked like actually they didn't have any cost. It was just retitling a position more accurately. And the rest, absolutely, they're going to have a cost either in reconciling levels or for training. Phase 2, there were 12 recommendations. 3 of them clearly require a desk audit, so they don't have any immediate cost, for various reasons. These were just positions that weren't ready for a real recommendation. One of them is to be removed, and the other 4, again, look like no cost items. The remainder, so 4 of them, I think one of them needs a desk audit, and really several of them are based on clarification of how we do operations. So I think that's something that we can articulate to the district to understand, do they have priorities for those? Phase 3 was the biggest one in terms of the number of recommendations. There were 15. One of them was removing sort of a vacant class that we don't plan to use anymore. 6 of them appeared to be renaming sort of no cost, low cost things. And 8 are going to cost some money. Looks like they have upgrades in titles and responsibilities and what have you. So, I look at this all together and I say, we've got, 36 recommendations sitting there. And I think that our job, the district sets the priorities. We can say, what looks out of whack or what needs a desk audit or, what might need a more robust reconciliation. And I think that that's something we should summarize to the district. And, the district is going to make its own decision about how does that fit with their priorities. So, that's kind of how I size this. I think it's a good thing that this would actually be happening at the same time negotiations are happening, because the union may or may not have the same priorities as the district, right? So let's understand everything that's on the table, because a big part of negotiations is coming to terms with, what are we doing about, these different priorities and our shared priorities.
Okay. I appreciate that, reviewing that in detail. My take on it so far is what's in front of us, which is we had a request from the union to postpone our recommendation. What I'd like clarity on is how long are you guys asking? Can you speak to that, Frank? If we were to consider it, there was no time frame on postponing our recommendation.
Yeah, we would probably need at least, till next meeting, but probably 2 meetings would be better. We need time.
Okay.
We need time to pull our members, talk to our members. There's 87 classifications. And we've been up and down with this, and there's a lot of things going on, as everybody here knows. Probably 2 meetings would be really nice. So we can get
October. End of October is
Yeah.
what you're saying? That would be 2 meetings from now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more specifically, really, what the problems are? I mean, is it just you haven't had a chance to read it and evaluate it? Or are there different? Mildred mentioned concerns, but she wasn't very specific.
I think there's a lot of reasons. When you talk to our members, I think one of the biggest reasons, and I could speak on this for myself also, is that there's just no communication. I don't know if you guys remember, I don't think you were here, Tim. They asked for them to come back and interview me because I said I wasn't going to fill out the questionnaire or fill out the form that said, how did it go? So they interviewed me, and then they said, do you agree or disagree? And I didn't fill out that form, and I stated that in a meeting. Well, they asked, was it EHA to come back and interview me again. They interviewed me again and never heard from them since. And that's just the thing. It's like they do an interview and you hear nothing from them, or you get your job description back and it has nothing in your job description what you talked about. It only has what we assume what the supervisors talked about. And that's just, you hear that all the time from all of our members. So we need to go through it and speak to our members and say, what, does this job description look good to you or not? And then you have to remember, you might talk to 3 that all agree with it, and you might talk to 2 that don't agree with it. And it's like, who do you, you got to negotiate this. Not everybody's going to agree with the job descriptions. You have to figure this out.
So
That seems like a large job to take on for the union. It seems like a pretty big task.
It
That's
is.
what the EHA was doing. So since the union is a big part and a big motivator behind even doing the class income study. And if their leadership is asking us to postpone this, and this is largely for their membership, I am agreeable to maybe talking about postponing it for one meeting. I'm not sure it's something you can tackle because it's really, this thing is, it's a monster. I mean, there's a ton of, if you're going back to interview each and every employee with an issue, you're gonna need more staff and more of everything. But that's not our question. You didn't ask me that. You asked us, your leadership asked us to withhold our recommendation. And I'm willing to entertain that discussion. Let's talk about it at least for a meeting. At least for one meeting, before we make a recommendation, to the district. Did you, the other issues that you brought up with the report are valid. I don't know if they can be addressed from the PC's perspective or even from the union perspective. It sounds like something that may need to be addressed through negotiation.
Right.
But that's just my opinion. I'm not sure. What you've asked us is, would we postpone it? And I'm open to discussing that. Director?
Thank you. One thing I would want the commissioners to consider is that BCCE is the largest union and represents the largest number of classified employees, but the report also includes 21 and unrepresented. So I might suggest that you can maybe postpone the BCCE, but there are other employees that have been waiting patiently a long time, and maybe the district can act on some of your recommendations in the meantime. I would not recommend, again, Aaron, this is your call after tonight, but I would not recommend holding the entirety of the report. And perhaps maybe just conceding that you hold anything that might affect the BCCE employees instead.
Good point. I appreciate that. Is there anyone here from local, the other locals online? Well, you guys can speak. You guys can speak to it if you would like.
I probably would check in with Steve Collins and check in and see where they are and what their feelings are about moving forward, because I have not heard from them.
Okay.
Man.
Yes.
I think what I'd also like to put forward is that this matters for the budget cycle for BUSD as well. And, we all know the budget cycle, starts in February officially, in terms of communications to the rest of the world, ends in June. But there's a lot of work that goes on before it actually starts in January to understand what kind of staffing, we would need and how much money we have to spend, et cetera, et cetera. And the sooner we queue things up, the sooner they can be looked at. We won't make any of these decisions. These are all district's decisions. Right. We spent a lot of money doing this, and we had some unfortunate delays that I appreciate Charlie got us value from. I in no way am interested in a recommendation from any union that we throw out results because people chose not to participate. There's nothing I can do about that history.
And for clarity, no one's asked that.
No one's asked it, but it's something I think probably is coming. So I'm just going to make it clear right now, not receptive to that. We have learned what we've learned. It's not a perfect process. At this point, I think it's about priorities. And I agree with you that, if we want to delay the BCCE portion of the recommendations for one meeting, which I think is fair. I'm okay with that. I don't think it's appropriate to delay for the other represented groups or the unrepresented.
I think that's a fair statement. The other groups aren't here and have not written in to ask us to delay. So there would be no reason for us to delay unless we saw a problem with the report, which I did not. So I'd say we recommend the withholding, postpone our recommendation for the BCCE portion of the report until our next meeting, and move forward with the recommendation for the rest of the study.
So can I ask, there are summary of recommendations from phase 1, phase 2, which includes some BCCE and some local 21, and then phase 3, which is the unrepresented and the confidentials, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're saying, I think, is we would move forward with the 15 phase 3 recommendations. Right? Because that's what we saw in
I haven't separated them into phases.
phase
but
3. I'm happy to share mine
Thank
with you. And these are separated. These are the links in what Sarah prepared for us. Thank you, Sarah, for making it easy. I think also something that we have to think about is sharing. And I just want to make sure that this is part of it. The recommendations kind of have to do with the job descriptions and misalignments in title or, you know, aspects like that. The benchmark work also breaks out. I guess there's 15 jobs that belong to either local 21 or unrepresented populations, and the analysis of, do we think they're at the median or are they not? And it's a pretty ugly page. I sorted it by units. So what you can see is anything that is a green or a blue, a light blue, is sort of within tolerance of the median, which I think is generally good news, although I'm not aware that BUSD has a compensation philosophy. So I have no idea if BUSD thinks paying somebody at the median is a good idea, or they want to place 10% below the median or 10% above the median. So these things are all relative, but, for the moment, I think our recommendation actually should also share actually the entire benchmark survey, to start to give the district an idea of, where they sit against a comp philosophy of, at least be at the median. Because as they start to do budget work, this is, again, going to help with prioritization for what they have in front of them. And I think the sooner you understand that, the better.
I might add, thank you, Commissioner. I might add, in terms of logistics, I see that to conform within the rules, I think this can be done one of two ways. I think this can be done one of two ways. Each commissioner can individually email the interim executive director the recommendation, and then in turn, the interim executive director can put that into the form of a proposed resolution for the board's consideration, or you can hold a special meeting in which you share those at a special meeting with all three of you. And that the second recommendation would be in the event that the three of you want to discuss your recommendations before submitting them. So those, I believe, would be the two paths I would offer forward. One, again, just to recap, you individually send them to Aaron. Aaron then consolidates them, sends back a proposed resolution for the board in terms of PC recommendations, which you would approve. All this is done through communication individually. Or you hold a special meeting in which, at the special meeting, you have your recommendations ready, the three of you discuss it. And then at the end of that meeting, you've given Erin resolutions that she will put on the next board agenda for the board's consideration to move forward. That's how I would recommend doing it.
Essentially, either way would postpone moving the recommendations to the board for at least a meeting.
you can
Unless
start
we
those
had
right
a
away.
special
Yeah.
meeting.
Unless we have a special meeting.
Unless you have a special.
Do we know when is
Yeah,
this
I
coming
don't
back?
know. Do we? When did Commissioner Roeder say?
Commissioner
Chair
Roeder say.
he was coming back?
I believe it was at the end of this month, but we're not sure when he's going to be available.
I would start looking at maybe the week before the regular meeting. So you have a special meeting that is, sorry, So you have a special meeting specific to the recommendations going to the board. And then you have your regular meeting. The question then becomes the availability of our commissioners, but if that didn't work out, I mean, I definitely think, again, what I'm hearing, going back to my point earlier, for commissioners, both commissioners' consideration, is that I'm getting feedback before I leave to make sure that I communicate that the district higher ups want some form of recommendation so they can start moving things forward. And I think it's the consideration of the budget, the consideration of the everything. So they want to start getting these things going. So that's why I'm proposing what I'm proposing so that we can start at least moving phase 3 forward.
So in September, we are meeting on the 23rd, right? It's, you know, we had to give up our Wednesday date. I'm traveling the 9th through the 19th, so I'm not sure in any meaningful way if, you know, unless we had a special meeting before those dates. You know, I don't know that there'd be any value in a special meeting, you know, on that Friday, the 20th.
And then the meeting is on, the regular meeting is scheduled for
Monday, 23rd.
23rd.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna give.
I mean, I would be open to, you know, that week after Labor Day. You know, I don't know if Commissioner Roeder will be available or not, but, you know, we
Next-
could hammer out something.
Next week.
Mhm. Yeah, next week, basically, right?
How about the week after?
I'm not there. That
The 20, after the 23rd?
Oh, no, after the 23rd, yes, but
I propose then maybe the last week of September. How does that look? So you have the regular meeting on the 23rd, but the following week, it's special meeting, just for the recommendations. You could do that.
when is,
Say it so the commissioners can hear it.
yeah,
No, I just mentioned that, or the recommendations can come to the regular meeting.
right.
And Sep-
If we couldn't schedule a special meeting prior,
Yeah.
you know,
Bring them as part of the regular meeting.
could we try a special meeting date and see if Commissioner Roeder could make it? I mean, I know he'd want to be included, right?
So the whole point of this is to get the recommendations to the board, to the district as quickly as possible, right? It's not, if we can't get it to them within the next week, it kind of loses value. We can have, it kind of loses value because we're going to give the same report at the regular meeting. So I say it's, you want to, I suggest we schedule between you and I a special meeting next week. And if Commissioner Roeder's here, he can attend. But anything after next week, the district
Yeah,
won't have,
I agree.
won't have anything, they won't have time to implement, or it won't do them much good.
Aaron, can you tell us the board meeting dates in September and October?
It's the mic. You have the mic?
Do we have anybody online?
It's September 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the 18th, sorry, hang on.
So September 18th, right? Typically, they're on a every other week rotation, right?
And then not on the 2nd. Then the 9th of October.
Oh, I missed a date in September. I'm sorry.
All right, let's just start over. So there is one on September 4th. September 18th,
Mm-hmm.
September the 9th.
October 9th.
I'm sorry, yes. October the 9th and October 30th.
There. Where I'm also out of
So
town.
maybe the 23rd is the meeting.
I still like the idea.
When is the
Try
regular, when is our regular meeting for next month?
23rd,
23rd.
It's the 23rd, September 23rd, right?
right?
Early.
And our regular meeting in October is also on the 23rd, or it's on the 30th?
30th.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a problem with that.
sorry, it's not, it's on the 23rd.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, if you are available for a special meeting that week of September 2nd, I'll just work with whatever works for you.
Yeah, I'm available for, see that Wednesday, Thursday or Friday would probably be better. I think, I've
Right.
got plans for that Monday, Tuesday. Do we have someone online?
Thursday and Friday, I already approved 2 days of vacation for our interim.
You need a break before you get started, right?
All right,
I
so-
get it.
Maybe we're looking at Wednesday?
Wednesday, if it works. Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday,
Yeah, that's the fourth.
let's tentatively, put that down.
Okay.
Could it start a little earlier?
Well, it's gonna have to be tentative altogether.
Mhm.
That week of, we have plans. I don't know if it's for the whole week or for the half week, you know.
Uh-huh, all right.
Labor Day weekend,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I
Mhm.
don't think it's for the whole week, but it might be for a great portion of the week.
Huh.
So, do we have someone online?
Sam and Mildred both have their hands up.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's go ahead and take them.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I thought I was clear earlier. I heard Heidi make the statement that she felt that I wasn't clear earlier, and I thought I was. What I was asking was for no recommendations to be made on the whole classification study, not just BCCE. And the reason why I was asking that is because there are concerns with the whole report. And there are concerns with the recommendations that are being made with not just BCCE. And the reason why I was saying that, and one of the examples that I gave was I was using, I know I used the delivery driver, but what I was trying to point out is if there's a recommendation that E and H gave for a delivery driver, for example, they will say that there is no recommendation, but then they'll go to another classification, let's just say of a higher job class, and they will make a recommendation for that classification. And that there are a lot of inconsistencies throughout the report that's like that, and it doesn't make sense. The numbers will be the same as far as the difference in the amount, but for one job class, it would be no recommendation, but for another job class, there would be a recommendation. So I was giving those examples, and I'm not understanding why there needs to be a special meeting for this when we have been waiting this whole time. There's a lot. So I don't understand why we have to have a special meeting for something like this. And again, the process again is changing. What's the rush? The district is saying that they don't have any money. So I'm not understanding why we have to push this through. And we're talking about budgets and things like that, but the district doesn't have any money. Why do we have to push this through for management? Can someone explain that?
So I don't think, well, I hope it's not coming across as we're pushing things through.
If we look at the recommendations, sir, I'm sorry, if we look at the recommendations, it's of great concern to BCCE. And I'm really trying not to go there or call out positions and the reasons why. I really don't want to do that. That's not what this is about. But I'm just really asking if you are allowed to give the investigation time for us to bring facts. That's why I asked if we can just not make any recommendations until we finish doing our due diligence on the whole classification, not just for BCCE. It's just an ask, because
Right.
I'm not understanding why we need to take anything to the board yet.
Well,
But, you know,
get that, it's just to ask, can you go into, give us a little detail between the unions? Because we don't have a representative here from the other union. So you want us to hold back the recommendation for the,
On the whole classification study, on the classification study in a whole, not just say, okay, we'll just not make any recommendations for BCCE, not make any recommendations at all on the classification study, because the process is the process, and the process is a concern in the way things were done and the way the recommendations were made from BCCE all the way doesn't make sense. It's very inconsistent throughout the whole report. So there are some recommendations that are made for certain classifications, and I don't understand why that was done. Only for certain classifications. And then when investigation or numbers are done, they're not adding up. So I'm not understanding on why we would even want to make recommendations on information that's not correct. What's the rush?
I got it. I appreciate that.
What are we rushing on? Why does it have to be done right now?
Well, it's not necessarily a rush from my perspective. It's more of the union you're speaking for isn't here, and I'm just trying to get the connection between how, if we did approve or make recommendations for the other union, how would that negatively impact BCCE holding?
It does, but I don't think this is the forum for me to say why.
Okay, thank you, Mildred.
That's why I asked if you notice in the beginning, I did ask if even the Personnel Commission was willing to just meet with us.
Sam, I don't see a problem with meeting with the union. Do we have another hand?
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a good night, you guys. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Sam. You have your hand raised, Samantha.
Yes, I just wanted to, I don't have any comments on what Mildred shared, but I want to let the commissioners know that I understand scheduling and all of that. So with the board meeting for September being the 4th, and then the 18th is actually a governance meeting. It's a special study session, so the board won't be taking any action during that meeting. So there isn't an urgency to meet early in September. If you are going to be meeting in the end of September to possibly make recommendations at that point, we wouldn't be taking it to the board before October anyway. I just wanted the commissioners to be aware of that.
And am I right that to queue something up to the board, we really need to get it in 2 weeks prior to the board meeting, right?
2 weeks is optimal. If I have a week, I can generally do it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Samantha.
And may I just want to understand something. Phase 1 was reported on to this organization when? I just kind of want to make sure that I am remembering correctly when the different phases were shared. Because actually, my perception is I've had a lot of time to look at this. And to the question of where's the urgency, if the district has asked us to explain to them what we've learned from the money that we have spent on this, and we're already, late, for a variety of reasons, in reporting out, I take that pretty seriously. I think we owe them a readout. I think we're past owing them a readout.
That's correct.
So I don't know, Sarah, is this a hard question? I mean, I seem to feel
Well, we
like.
can look, sorry, I can guesstimate, but do you have it in front of you? No, 23
is when we got phase 1, 23. Mhm.
Yeah,
In
Yeah.
June.
that's correct, because we had to ask for an extension because originally the original contract was only through November of
November,
23.
right.
So we asked for the extension for the 6 months.
So we've had phase 1 for a year plus.
Yes,
We've had phase 2 for what's November to now, 10 months?
yes.
give or take. And phase three, which is the unrepresented, world and confidential world, since June.
Since June. And Heidi, if I may, you bring up a good point. I understand the union's position, but you are correct about our obligation. The district asked us and they charged us to give them a recommendation. Whether they act on it or not is irrelevant
Right,
as far as I'm
it's up to them.
concerned. I'm looking out for my commissioners and my commission, which is, we promised that we would give a recommendation. We should do that. I leave it to the union to negotiate. That's what they do. What we do is that they said, we're paying for this. At the end of this, you're going to tell us what we should do. We should do that.
I also just feel like it would be wrong to withhold the entire study and the recommendations for other unions that have not raised a concern. We've shared this all publicly. Of course, unrepresented doesn't have a union, but I assume we would have heard from people if they had heartburn with this.
We want something too.
Right.
Even though it's not me, but
my
people too.
And local 21, haven't heard from local 21. So I think BCCE can speak for BCCE.
Given Samantha's input, I appreciate that, Samantha. I don't think putting this on hold from one meeting is going to impact how it goes or when it goes to the board. So the district has asked us to help manage this classic comp study. We would be remiss if we didn't get input from all the parties, and the union, the BCCE is a very big part of that. So if they have more input to give us, we need to hear them. The district is only one party to this. So I am, like I was earlier, I'm leaning toward postponing it, not postponing until at least one meeting. Because there's nothing we can materially do that will impact the speed in which the district can implement this, because they won't meet before early October anyway. So I don't see a problem with postponing this for September 23rd. Postponing our recommendations till September 23rd.
Postponing recommendations for all units?
So yes, so let's be clear. Yes, for all unions. And that is, I'm basing that on the fact that the district won't have time to implement it. But
I'm not worried about implementation. I'm just worried about working things through the pipeline as soon as we can. Okay, because we've already gotten a pretty clear signal from BCCE that they have a lot of heartburn with how the study was done. They didn't participate because of it. I don't know ultimately what their recommendation will be, but I'm sure, we'll have some complex things to sort through. I'd like to move forward what we can move forward now, so that we can clear the decks for the rest of the discussion.
so that would look like what?
So that would look like us having ideally a special meeting in next week. If not, it would be on the 23rd, putting together our recommendations to the board for BCCE and the unrepresented and confidential populations. And then hearing from BCCE on the 23rd and taking action
On the 23rd.
on the 23rd. Yeah, I don't want to hear on the 23rd, we're not done and we don't know. And can we have another meeting? I really think that, and I appreciate it's complicated, all the CBAs come up for renegotiation and money's tight, which is exactly why as much information as can be on the table so that the district can understand its priorities, because each union understands their priorities. It's a small pot and, they're going to have to work it out. It's going to be tough. Withholding information is not a good way to enter into that.
I don't think we're withholding information at all. I think that we have a request. That's a request from a major interested party that we can accommodate. So I'm okay with moving everything to the 23rd. That's our next meeting anyway. There's no, we don't know if Izzy's gonna be back by then, do we?
We don't. I mean, I still think we should try to meet special if we can. Because I think it's gonna take us a while to sort out how
I
a
agree.
recommendation, even for the other two units,
I agree.
would work.
I agree.
And just to note, this is a discussion item. And I think what I hear Commissioner Goldstein saying is just to work on something between now and the 23rd. Is that?
Work on what we can work on.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I think, Secretary, interim secretary. I think we, when Izzy is feeling better, I think that, short of calling a meeting, I think that you can perhaps maybe facilitate the conversations like sometimes I do, where I'm reaching out to each individual, commissioner to kind of try to get some information on the docket for the 23rd. That meets both Vice Chair Carter's requirement and Commissioner Goldstein's requirement, but I definitely feel like maybe we get, when Commissioner Chairperson Roeder's feeling good about this, that we share the minutes of this particular discussion item and get some direction from him as chair as to whether we wait altogether until the 23rd or we get some work done and present something on the 23rd. Because again, this is not an action item, it's a discussion
It's a
item.
discussion
Right.
item anyway,
But,
right.
but at least your secretary can start moving this along and then getting back to you as to where Izzy stands on this.
Mhm.
Because he may agree with one of you or both of you, I don't know. But is that okay? Something you could do?
Yes, that works. And I can also reach out to Local 21 and maybe some unrep staff and make sure and see where they are. with-
Definitely.
That would be that would be great. That would be excellent. That would be awesome. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
She thought of something I did.
Yeah. Well, you did say she was cuter and smarter.
She is.
Okay, so moving on to discussion item where we have agreed to postpone 9B until the next meeting. 9C. Cut scores. I see we have, I see it is 7:30. 7:32.
Could I recommend we extend for 10 more minutes? I personally, I don't have a lot of comments
Okay.
on these, you know,
Okay.
I think we asked for it and we have it.
Okay, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. All right, so let's move on to cut score examination.
So I believe I've submitted this before. I have a very simple position and a recommendation moving forward. I think you all know I served on the CODAS board. I felt like I needed to really inform myself in regards to scoring. I did a presentation on it in 2022. This has come up several times. There's two things for the consideration of the commissioners here. One is that this is the industry standard. This is the best practice. And my predecessor, for a reason, in 2014, abolished the flat score of 70. And the reason for that is that all the studies and everything that demonstrates and all the other merit districts, they go with what's called the floating cut score. That's one component. So we always want to abide by best practice and things that go with the rules. The second is, I think you're now in a position to recruit and retain. And in my role, one of the more attractive growth opportunities has been to make those decisions, to work with my team and do some research and try to make the best decision possible, sometimes in the moment. And the rules, if you'll notice, in 20.300.2, the rules support that spirit, which is, hey, commissioners, you're going to hire someone you trust to make these calls. And of course, this person talks to the chair or the vice chair. You know, whenever I have things I have to discuss with all of you, I do. And I expect Aaron to do the same. But there is something to be said for the discretion of the person you hire. And having been in that position for 3 years, it feels good to be able to make the decision and to be able to work with my team and have the general sense of fairness that comes with making that right decision. Lastly, I will say that one safeguard that's been put in place that can't be stressed enough and isn't mentioned often, frankly, is in June of 22, we implemented a blind screening. And what's very important about that is that when my team asks me for a cut score, I have no idea who any of those people are. None. All I have is a number and a score. So in other words, I have B246, C422, and then the score next to it. And the reason that's important is because if there's any question from anyone about favoritism, it's not possible. Unless 12 is your favorite number, but that's a little ridiculous, right? There's no ethnicity, there's no culture, there's no name, there's no nothing. So every possible system in place to have the system be neutral, agnostic, and fact-based is already in place. And you have a great team, and Aaron has tremendous judgment. So I don't think that, I strongly believe going to a 70 would set us back at least 10 years. And we would be it wouldn't serve the interest of the commission or the classified employees or be consistent with the rules. I said I was going to be short and I wasn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, you have some comments?
No.
So I do have some comments on this one. And I appreciate that, Charlie, I appreciate that perspective. But the perspective I'm looking at it from is from the test taker. So it's the idea behind a set cut score isn't that we don't have trusted employees, or it isn't that we don't value your judgment. It is for transparency for the person taking the test. And I think that speaks volumes if they know what the cut score is before walking into the exam, and not having it float after they take the exam. So it's easy for us to say, we're employed, we have control, to say, hey, it's fair. And that's easy for us. It's really hard for someone who made 70 but didn't make the cut and didn't know it until after the test. So that's a bitter pill to swallow when it's something we can address up front. So it's not necessarily a comment on the people in office or the people making the decision. It's from the perspective of the test taker. And this is a discussion item. I wish Izzy was here as well, so he could chime in and to get his opinion. But that's my opinion on the cut scores. I think it's something that needs to be a little bit more transparent for the person taking the test. So the cut score should be set up front, or maybe based on how many applicants. If we get 100 applicants, the cut score is this. If we get 60 applicants, it's this. If we get 5, it's this. But upfront prior to taking the test. All right, this is a discussion item. Do you have a comment, Frank? You want to make it quick? Because we're only extending it for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm tired too. Real quick, I brought this up before. 4202. promotional examinations. Examinations shall, where practical, be as determined by the commission, be limited to promotional applicants. The way I read this is that they should be promotional first, always, and then for open. The other way I read this, if you're gonna have a cut score, you should be cutting them separately, meaning the promotionals get cut, have a cut score, different cut score, maybe than the open, and that's critical. I mean, we just had one, if you look at the docs, we just had one where we had 3 promotionals and we had 1 open. You could literally cut one of the promotionals out. If you decide to make that cut score a little higher, you could cut a promotional out. I don't know what the scores were. But you see what I'm saying? You're like, oh, we're gonna cut it because we have 3 applicants who scored in the 80s. And this one person scored 70. We're gonna make the cut score 75. So now you're cutting out a promotional. But if you go promotional first, always, then we got 3 promotionals. Let's make the cut score here and we'll take all 3 of them. I'm not saying, what the scores are, but you see what I'm saying? There's a big difference between having promotional and having open promotional on the same list and then trying to figure out cut score. That has repeatedly hurt our promotional candidates over and over again.
I don't know if that's the case. I think Charlie does a good job at making sure he identifies, if he can, the promotional candidates. But I do agree that the cut score process needs some attention. So I appreciate that. Yes, you have, Commissioner?
I just have one question, which is, when it's been promotional and open, have you used different cut scores for the different
We always,
groups?
this is more, right, no, the short answer is no. But because this is my last meeting, I'm going to give a slightly longer answer. We always move the promotional candidates to the top. So it's not like they don't score well and then, no, we put promotional people at the top. It doesn't matter what that's what I mean. I mean, I understand the union's position, but it can't be said enough that we always rank the promotional, the internals at the top of the list. And if there's, for example, we had a list recently where there were all 3, list of 3, all 3 people that the site administrator can choose from were all promotional because it was a rule of 3, right? And that happens sometimes, but we always have the promotional person right at the very top. They're going to be in that 3 selection. Can't do better than that, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think I was asking slightly different.
Mhm.
Promotionals take the test and opens take the test. And the score is 70, just for the sake of argument, right? So 2 of the promotionals score in excess of the 70 and 1 of them doesn't. So I've got 2 promotionals at the top, right? And then I've got, 1 or 2 ranks of the opens who also scored 70 or above. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Go ahead.
The cut score has always been the same for both promotional and open
Got
candidates.
it. It's always been applied the same way. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sorry. The opposite end of that.
No, I'm good.
All right, thanks for that. So next on the list is the advanced step rubric.
I don't have anything to add. I just submitted the information from the last meeting. I think that either both commissioners or one commissioner wanted to bring this back to discuss further. I will caution because we're now 15 minutes over. So and we still may have public comment. So I don't know how much discussion we can have. And I'd hate to bring it over again, but it's up to the 2 of you.
It may have been Commissioner Roeder who wanted this to come back. It looks, I just wanted it in writing for my request, and this is,
It's actually me.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do you have, well, Commissioner Gols, Commissioner.
But blame it on Rotary.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
And the only reason I asked for it to come back was just to clarify. We talked a little bit about it at the June meeting, and there was still some confusion. I don't disagree with any of this.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So let's move on to
Could I make one other comment though
Please.
on this? And that one other comment is, I noticed in the class and comp study that a lot of our peer districts actually use a 7-step scale.
Yeah.
And I realize, that's not something that we determine, but I can see value in why, because if you want to do some advanced step placement, you could say, you can advance step up to 5 steps credit,
Right.
and it still gives folks room to grow.
It has, to Vice Chair's point, it won't stop at 5. You
Right.
save the last 2 for those opportunities.
Right.
So just a
Excellent
thing.
issues. Bring up for discussion. Okay, now we're ready for public comment. We have anybody online?
always like yours. We all look. Well, I want to say thank you to you. Well, thank you. And we're going to miss you. Thank you. Good luck in your new position. Thank you. Yeah. It's bittersweet. I really enjoy the people here. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody here was really great. Yeah, the bigger animal will fight over there. There'll be fights over there. That's for sure. I ride it every day, so I know. Yeah, I think you're going to work for Bart, right? I'm going to Bart. Yeah, I understood that, right? I'm going to Bart, yeah.
Can you help us get ugly Christmas?
I can. Commissioner Goldstein asked for ugly Christmas sweaters and I said, yeah, I found, there's a whole box of them, many boxes of them. Yeah. Well, I welcome your feedback and my new role. You can email me and I'll try to fix it. I mean, honestly, it's, I've already heard elevators broken and escalators that don't work. So
Bring it on.
bring it on. I'm not even there yet.
Bring it on.
Right. But I ride an e-bike. And my e-bike doesn't go upstairs or elevators.
Actually, do approach me after the meeting. I don't know that we should have
Yeah,
this
that's,
on.
yeah, this is a different topic. Oh, anyone else? Anyone else online? Public comment? Okay, who is it? Go ahead. Public,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes.
Hi, my name is Unique Wells. I'm currently the Learns Program Specialist at Berkeley Arts Magnet. I am here today because I am on the eligibility list and the position has not been opened since the former person left back in January of this year. So I'm currently the specialist there by myself, and I don't have any site coordinator with me. And that is the list that I'm currently on. I see that the discussion item about the specialist and coordinator position was moved to the next meeting, but the jobs are pretty much identical. I am doing a lot of the work of the coordinator, so I'm kind of just want to bring it to the attention of the Personnel Commission that I am interested in the job. I feel like I'm doing the work and the position has not been opened. It's like that for 3 different sites, but I am speaking for my site specifically at Berkeley Arts Magnet. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I will talk about it more at the next meeting since that item was moved to the next meeting. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I have one a short public comment. I know it's unusual for me, but I was expecting to hear something like this from someone in the public. But when it comes to the class and comp study, this is turning out to be, this is my second one and neither one has gone well. Neither one has gone well. The classified employees have been unhappy with both studies that I've been involved in. And out of discussions with different members of the union leadership, suggestion came out that it is possible that we break the study up over the 3-year period by dividing up the classes of employees and doing them 1 year at a time, bringing an employee to manage that inside the PC, And instead of paying an outside vendor to try and wrangle the whole district at 1 year, that we have, we use that money and talk the district into funding this position, where we break that up in bite-sized chunks where one person can manage and discuss and talk to, and who's qualified for position evaluation on an ongoing basis, which is really what we need. Because this study is just too big for even our advisors to take on. So I was expecting to hear that from some of the leadership, but I want to make sure it gets out there as an option. That is my public comment. Now, next is our next meeting, September 23rd. All right. All right. Set, September 23rd. All right, meeting is adjourned.